Well, hello, folks, and welcome to another fantastic episode of RfRx. I'm Eric Wells, and I am going to be your co-host this evening. I'm the RFR Support Group Director, and with me is my good friend, and you've seen her before, ladies and gentlemen, Kara Griffin, an online community moderator for Recovering from Religion. Welcome, Kara. It's so good to see you.
Hey, thanks. It's good to be here as always on the best night of the week. And it's also on top of RfRx night. Happy Pi Day.
Pi day to you, Kara. Oh my gosh. Real quick, because like we're weirdos with how we put our date together. What is Pi Day?
Yeah, so it's 314, which is like 3.14, because here in the States we do the month and then the day and then the year. So I think this is only a thing we have here. I'm not sure if our European friends have this celebration.
Yeah, I love Pi Day. And then when I was in Springfield, we would have a two Pi Day that would take place like sometime in June. Like, what is it? June 28th or something like that.
Oh, it's 628. So it's like
Yep.
pi times 2.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
we would go our secular group, the Springfield Skeptics. We would go to like the Village Inn and have pie and just kind of get together. It was a lot of fun. It's just a great little dumb holiday, but they're all
Yeah.
kind of dumb.
Yeah, exactly. At least this one, you don't have to buy a lot of things. I mean, except pie, but
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I guess
true.
you could just calculate the circumference of circles instead if you wanted to.
Well, folks, welcome. And we are here at RFRX. And at the beginning of every RFRX, we have a poll. And these polls have got, or this poll has got some questions that will kind of get you into the mindset of what we're going to be discussing today. So today's poll is going to have three questions, and these will be running throughout the whole introduction, and we'll close it down once we start to introduce our guests. But the first question is, which I kind of enjoy, what do you think paganism was, or what do you think paganism is? Is it a bunch of weirdos in the woods worshiping trees? Is it a religion based on a hodgepodge of new and ancient practices? Is it all about orgies and goat sacrifices? Is it about something else, or you really didn't have any idea what it is coming into it? The second question is when you were transitioning out of organized religion, did you consider any new age or pagan religions as you were working your way through that? And then thirdly, the final question is paganism a recognized religion in the USA? And it's a yes, no, or I don't know. So those poll questions, like I said, they'll be running through our whole intro here at RFRX. But before we kind of move on, Kara, what is RFRX? Why are we even here?
Great question, Eric. Why are we here to, talk about life, the universe, and everything? Um, Not really. It's just the best night of the week. RFRX is where we have a series of online weekly shows that we do every Monday night, where we discuss topics that might be relevant to folks in RFR. And of course, it's not a replacement for our other groups like the online community or the support groups, but it is definitely meant to be a complement to those groups. And it's a place where we have new speakers who come every week and provide us some new insights, information, good advice, coping skills, things like that about various topics of interest to us. And if anyone is interested in asking some questions or some ideas about future show topics or anything like that, you can send those to our email at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And you can find all of our previous recordings, of which there are, I'm given to understand, approximately 100 on our
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel.
And I will
Yeah.
go ahead and drop those links into the chat, and they will be in the YouTube description video as well. So we have been throwing around the initialism RFR this whole time. And if you're new, you may be wondering what that stands for. And if you've been here a while ago, you know what it's for. But RFR stands for Recovering from Religion, and we're a nonprofit organization with a mission statement. And our mission statement is to offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. And within that mission, we have set up a lot of different programs to kind of pursue that. Hopefully one day we'll work ourselves out of a job, even though all of us are volunteers. But we have, like I said, so many different programs, and they are broken up into those different parts, the hope healing support. Kara, you want to start off with what we're doing about healing part of our mission?
Yes, absolutely. So healing is what we primarily offer through our helpline. And that is something you can call or chat into. If you just go to our website, recoveringfromreligion.org, there's an opportunity to either click the chat box or a phone number you can call, whichever you're more comfortable with. And that is where you can get 24/7 support from agents who are there to talk to you. They're not bots or anything like that. It's volunteers like us who are there to listen, with an empathetic ear. They're not going to be judging or criticizing you. They're not going to be proselytizing or deconverting or anything like that. They're just there to listen to what's going on with you, and if relevant, point you in the direction of resources and things like that, which you can also access our huge library of resources on our website if you would like to just go directly there at recoveringfromreligion.org/resources. So definitely check that out. If there's anything you're interested in, you'll notice there's a whole lot of topics in the resources that you can check into. And then, in addition to healing, we also offer hope, or at least we try to, through our blog and our podcast. And basically, the idea behind that is just it's a place where we can share and listen to other people's personal stories and experiences and kind of feel that sense of community and maybe get inspired by, what somebody else was able to go through. And, hey, man, if they were able to get through that, that gives me a lot of hope for my situation and things like that. Just kind of learning about other people's struggles and kind of realizing we're not in this alone. There are a lot of us. We're all in this together. So definitely check out our blog and our podcast, which Eric is dropping the links to in the chat as well. And Eric, do you want to talk about your most favorite supports?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I thought you'd never ask. Folks, we have also, in pursuit of our mission, we have also set up peer support groups. This is a place where you and I, or all of us, or anyone who has joined we have an opportunity to sit face to face, whether it's virtually or in person, and kind of share and listen to the experiences that we've been through or the experiences that other people have been through. This is a very supportive and a very safe place, and we've got well over 60 of these groups around the world. The amazing volunteers who are the support group leaders, they, like I had said, they create just a great safe space that oftentimes so many folks have the opportunity to kind of share their concerns, share their fears, share their doubts for the very first time, because they're not necessarily around a stifling group of people who may not be open to hearing what you have to say about it. So you can take a look at if there is a support group near you or an upcoming meeting that you might be able to hop in virtually. You can head onto the website. I've got the link into the chat. That's also going to be in the YouTube description. In addition to that, we have talked about the helpline where you can call in or chat in. We've talked about the support groups like just now, and you heard about that. Those are both peer support. It's not at all professional. We've got a lot of training for our volunteers, but it's nowhere near the type of training as Dr. Kara very well knows. It's nowhere near the amount of training that a professional would go through. So we have set up the Secular Therapy Project because sometimes we need more than just what peer support can offer. And the Secular Therapy Project accepts therapists who, and they're heavily vetted to make sure that they have the appropriate licensing in their state or their country, to make sure that they are maintaining a secular practice, so you won't run the risk of being proselytized to. And they also make sure they are vetted to ensure that they run an evidence-based practice. And so you can go to seculartherapy.org and get an account and look for a therapist near you. In addition to that, one of the other parts that we felt was missing and that people had come to us is the community aspect of RFR. Kind of like, I'm hurting, I'd like to connect with other people. I can't always make it to the support groups, and let's just kind of talk on our own time, our own terms. And so we have set up the RFR online community. This is not a place that's publicly available. You can't search through it through the internet and find it. Instead, this is kind of a private community that folks who are in there are screened to see if they make sure that they're a good fit for us. And so, but this is a place where you can connect with people who are going through similar situations as you. If you're an ex-military or current military, if you are an ex-Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Muslim, or a member of the LGBTQ community, there is these different channels in Slack that we have set up to connect the folks who have gone through these similar situations. So if you are interested in joining that, and if that sounds like something you could benefit from, head on to our helpline, either call in or chat in, and the volunteer will ask you a few questions, see if you could fit, and send you an invite. And then finally, for my end, Kara's got a lot more to talk about. We have got the atheist community of Discord. This is a fantastic group of people who are just, it's a great community. If you're looking for some other non-believers to hang out with and to get community with, head on over to the atheist community of Discord, and I'm dropped all those links into the chat. I've been talking a lot about volunteering, like we're all volunteering. Kara, you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, we are all doing a lot of volunteering around here, and that's because this is completely a 100% volunteer-run organization. And as it turns out, volunteering is another great way to engage in healing. A lot of RFR volunteers find that they get a lot of meaning and purpose out of being able to help other people through some of the similar circumstances that they went through themselves. I know that's been the case for me. And as it happens, if you're thinking, man, I really wish I could get involved in this, you're in luck, because we're always in need of more volunteers. And it could be for any of the programs that we just previously described, right? The helpline, the online community, any of those things. If you feel like, hey, I have some skills or abilities that I'd like to lend a hand with that, outstanding. If you have other skills and abilities, we can probably use those too. Maybe you're good at using the technologies or project management or things like that. We probably have a spot for you. And we do have training that Eric mentioned is provided for volunteers too. So if that's something that sounds like you might be interested in, definitely check it out at recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer. And you can read about what all that would entail and how to get started. You ready, Eric?
I'm ready. I am so excited. I have been looking forward to this discussion for a very, very long time. Like, this has been something that is like near and dear to my heart as part of my own transition out of religion. But who better to kind of present this to us than our good friend and familiar face around RFR, Helen Greene. Helen currently lives in Sarasota. She has a degree in psychology from the University of South Florida. She works in human resourcing and is an incredible LGBTQIA advocate. She also enjoys spending time with her hubby and her kids, and she loves sci-fi and horror movies and is a huge Tolkien nerd. Helen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. This is so cool. I really appreciate you want to hear me talk about the wacko religion I was in for 13 years. So this is going to be great.
I mean, that's kind of what we do here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, so many of us were part of wacko religion. So,
right, I know.
You get to talk about yours.
Like, come on, let's talk about our weird shit we did in the past. Come on.
And I am so excited for this one too. I cannot wait to learn more about the things. It sounds like, I always think like with the paganism, I always imagine like, oh, that weird religion sounds like they might have more fun. I want to know what they're doing. But is this a myth? Is this true? Who knows? We're about to find out, right?
Yes, I know all the secrets.
Yes.
So Helen, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, were you raised in paganism? What was your story like?
Well, I got out of the Catholic Church. I was raised Catholic, which is very pagan. If you know anything about the Catholics, they love ritual and ceremony. A lot of the things that they do looks like they're casting magic spells and that type of stuff. So it's very romantic and you know, like I love a show. So
you know, in Catholicism, almost the saints too, they kind of feel a little bit like deities with some of the magical stuff they can do too. It feels like.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there's a theory, because this religion is based on having a pantheon, that a lot of that transferred over into the Christian religions, because it was hard to get the pagans to get out of that mindset. And then, like, you know, if you have like St. Patrick, you know, who, you know, drove all the snakes from Ireland, quote unquote. There's no snakes in Ireland, by the way.
Well, because of St. Patrick, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
So
surely we
that's
found snake fossils in Ireland, and then after a certain point, they were no more snake fossils.
that's
The
right. You
great
drove them all
snake
out
fossil migration.
with this great magic. So to get people to change their mindset, that's kind of the idea. And then the idea of saints, and like we call like the Catholic religion or Christianity like a monotheistic religion, but it has pagan roots. Like the Trinity is considered like multifaceted of one, and that's what a lot of the gods in paganism is. But we'll go into that a little bit more later. So, but yeah, I was in the church from the time I was born till I was about 24 years old, but we weren't fundamental about it in my household. It was just kind of like my parents were, this is the religion that we are, because my mom's parents were Catholic, and her grandparents were Catholic, and on
Oh,
it
wow.
goes,
Okay.
because it's French Catholic, and it's just generational, and you are the religion of your family. So, but we went to church on Sunday. I did the whole like first communion confirmation thing, but I was also allowed to hang around with people from different faiths, learn different things. And my parents weren't really super strict about it. So I had that freedom to explore at the same time as well. And I was already interested in like the occult and magic, and maybe there's more to this life than just going to church. Because also this was during the 90s, and there's a lot of feminist and queer messaging coming out that was okay to be who you are. And I started questioning, like, why can't women be in leadership roles? Why is like having sex and murder, having sex before marriage and murder the same thing, and I go to hell for that? So it was a lot of that, which is pretty normal for people that are going through that transition. And then when the sex abuse scandal happened in the Catholic Church, when it came out with the Boston Globe, and we found out that priests are a bunch of dirty pedophiles and stuff like that, and me being a sexual abuse survivor, I was like, this is my nail in the coffin moment. I can't be a part of an organization that is okay with like raping kids. I can't. So
Wow.
I ended up transitioning out, and then I moved from New Hampshire down here to Florida, started exploring now that I was kind of away from the influence of my family and that peer pressure, because a lot of us stay in a religion because of that peer pressure, and doing something outside of that is too scary, or you don't feel like you're going to find your people. Where am I going to get support? And I started going to local pagan shops and ceremonies, connecting with people online. And I was going through a huge transition in my life. I was going through a divorce. I had moved. And the thing about paganism, that it gives you a feeling of control, that you have a guiding ship for your life. So it was very attractive to me, because at the time my life felt very, very chaotic. And
Oh,
then,
I can see that. Yeah.
yeah. So, and that happened, and a lot of teenagers get into paganism for this reason too, because when you're an adolescent, your life feels out of control. Like you're not quite a child anymore. You're not an adult. Hormones are going crazy, and you're trying to carve out a new identity. And religion is considered like rebellious to it's very counterculture compared to like Christianity and Judaism and the mainstream stuff. So it's attractive to young people as well. So that's why teenagers kind of get into it too. So as I went along, I started moving up in the ranks, and I I belonged to a group that was a facilitator, and I became a high priestess. And I led the group with still my best friend, my dearest friend. And we led that group, and we taught witchcraft and spell work and psychic abilities and different types of ancient religions, and trying to put things together and stuff like that. So I was in that from the time I was like 27, and I till I was about like 38, 39. So it was a long time. And then I kind of just stopped caring a lot. I kind of just lost interest in it in some way. And then at this, also at the same time, I was like listening to a lot of atheist content, and I'd always been science positive, and I had grown up in a very science positive household and stuff. But when you're getting that message, like religion and science can't complement each other. So religion was like the moral system and science is science. You can kind of marry the two because you kind of keep them. That's what the Catholic Church does, so they keep it separate. So when you have that, you don't question too much, because the Catholic Church isn't teaching like young earth creationism or anything. So you can go, okay, well, the church is just saying like, God put evolution and everything into being, so you can say that to yourself and you're like, okay. So what happened to me was I had always been very science positive. I wasn't skeptical about how science worked, and I was always interested of like looking up information about like, any subject that I wanted to. So I think that helped me because I didn't go through like an angry atheist phase, or I didn't like have like this huge conflict within myself about leaving. I was just kind of like, you know what? I don't know. Most of this is bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to be me and stop like believing in magic and casting spells, and that, there's deities around and stuff like that. And the deity thing is a little weird too, because like I wasn't hardcore on deity and like believing they actually existed and stuff like that. It was more like an archetypal symbol that you would tap into. I'll go into more of that as we go through the slideshow and stuff like that. But that's kind of when you're in that brain, it's just easier to pull yourself out, because that indoctrination over years and years started chipping away. And then like when I went to college and started learning like about I studied psychology and started learning about magical thinking and cognitive bias and, all these different things and how we trick ourselves. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I'm doing that to myself. Yeah. And then that really helped me kind of completely transition out. And that's where I am right now. So, so I've been out of practicing any sort of religion for about 4 or 5 years now.
That is so interesting. Do you feel like also being in like a leadership position also might have contributed to you kind of realizing, oh, this is all there is? This might be a bunch of BS, like teaching it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning it's very like, it's very attractive, because when you're feeling powerless and you have something that's going to make you feel powerful and you're in control of your life and you can direct the energies of the universe to bring forth what you want, it's super attractive. Like, don't we wish all of us could do that? That'd be great.
Yes. But there are many times I've wanted to cast spells, but
right. But no. So, and when I got into that leadership position, it really made me think a lot, especially when our group kind of disbanded because people just got busy with life. Like people got married or they had kids, careers started taking off, all that type of stuff. And when I got to sit back from it and look at it, I was like, I'm teaching bullshit.
We've all been there.
It also sounds like you got to ascend to a position that you would not have been able to do otherwise inside of your Catholic religion, your previous religion. Yeah,
and that's why it was so attractive, because like I'm very much like a feminist and smash the patriarchy, fuck you kind of person. So, and paganism has a lot of like whatever gender you identify as, you can have a leadership position. So that's really cool. So that was very attractive, because when you grow up in a very patriarchal religion and your message is just like, it's God, then the man and then the woman and then the kids, you know, like
Yeah.
it's a tier.
The
Yeah.
umbrella of
Yeah.
protection.
Oh,
Yeah,
such a
and
gross image.
me, I'm like, this is a bunch of bullshit. I'm smart. I can have, you know, wonderful cosmic power, you know, I can have that. Why did they get it? You know, and that was very attractive to me too, as a woman, and feeling like I wanted to have like a leadership role. And because I like leading people, like not in like a culty way, like, but I like organizing, getting people together and like doing projects. And, you know, like I'm, you know, I get very excited at the beginning of things. I just need someone to help me follow through, because my ADHD brain will kick in and go, now we're bored. The excitement is over. So I'm very good at getting things started. It's just the getting the completion done is a little tricky for me. So
Yeah, can relate.
Well, it sounds like we're about ready to get into your slideshow.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is my slideshow on paganism, the positive, the perils, and problems within the ancient new religion. And I'll do my best to describe some of the pictures and information that I have up for our visually impaired listeners, or if you're listening on the podcast. So
I really do kind of like that contradiction in title, the ancient new religion.
Yeah. I'm going to explain what paganism is. So paganism is a religion based upon pre-Christian beliefs, but continues to evolve. It is a blanket term which covers several nature-based religions such as Wicca, astroturf, and Druidry, and there's other forms of paganism as well. Santeurian, like voodoo, the religion is kind of covered under paganism. They wouldn't classify themselves as pagan, but they are technically, because they're polytheistic. They have multiple deities. So that's kind of where that idea kind of comes from. Many choose to integrate cultural and ethnic belief systems which are appropriate for them, such as Native American faiths. So if you grew up Native American, but you were kind of separated from your the spiritual side of it, or if you found out that you have like Native American heritage within like your family line or whatever, you might incorporate some of the beliefs and practices within the Native American religion to complement your paganism practice. So one of the major things with paganism is the veneration of nature. So there's a photo up of this woman and she's by a stream and she looks very like her arms are outstretched and she's like, yay, nature worship. You.
Is this you? Is this a picture of you,
No,
Helen?
it is not. No.
I was wondering, like, what does one look like as a pagan high priestess? Is there a uniform? Is it this?
It's kind of, you dress kind of like a hippie. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. Like, or you like there, depending on the circle you belong to, you can go skyclad, which is nude for a ritual, like everybody's naked.
What?
Yeah,
Did
but
y'all do that?
No, I am very shy, and unless I'm sleeping with you, I'm not going to get naked in front of you. That's just the way.
That's fair.
So, but some pagan circles do ritual skyclad. Usually if you like but for certain Sabbaths are the holidays within the pagan religion, you would wear colors associated with that day. So for example, Astara, which is coming up, which is Easter. Actually just passed because no, like it's coming up because we're going into the spring equinox. Because we're transitioning over from winter to spring, you would wear like pastels, you know, you would wear like lavender and pink and soft greens and stuff like that to venerate that symbol of we're transitioning into springtime, and you would do a ritual. And you have symbols of eggs and little chicks and rabbits and things like that, because those are symbols of reproduction in and regeneration within and even in our modern culture. So they got that, those would be used in ritual and stuff like that to symbolize we're celebrating this particular Sabbath. So, but because the big thing with paganism is that the cycle of the natural year, that because with it's very much related to the sun and the religion that a lot of ancient cultures followed was the cycle of nature and the sun was your like life and death support because it contributed to everything that you were doing on, if you were like, especially like an agriculture, society, you lived and died by the sun. But it takes a step beyond that, beyond like the natural power of nature to, it holds spiritual growth and mystical powers within the earth. Okay, and it gets into energy and stuff like that, and I'll explain that a little bit more as we go on. So we're going to go in a little bit into the history. So paganism is simultaneously a prehistoric religion and a postmodern religion. So I have like a picture of Stonehenge at sunset, because we're going to start where we kind of think this kind of came from. So we're going to go way back with animism, which is attributing souls to plants and inanimate objects and natural phenomena. Like there's an energy or consciousness behind these things that have made it do what it do, and like you can tap into that energy and stuff like that. And then that kind of transitioned into like the animism. And then because the ancients had no idea like how lightning worked, so if you're living in ancient Scandinavia and you're seeing all this natural phenomena and you're a seafaring group of people, and you also like to conquer other lands, you start contributing things you reflect in your culture onto nature. So if you didn't know how lightning worked, you would kind of give that over to like a thunder god and call him Thor. And you start telling stories about like, how did Thor get his lightning power and where does it come from, and what was his family dynamics like with his brother and his siblings and his dad and stuff like that. So that's an example of how once we moved from hunters and gatherers over to more agriculture based societies where we were settling down, creating towns and cities, creating culture and stuff like that. And if you study ancient religions and mythologies, it's always a reflection of what's going on in the culture, what they consider important, what deities they did worship and stuff like that. And it's really like, I love mythology. It is a trip. I love learning about it. That's one of the wonderful things about paganism, though, is that it's very much encourages education, especially on ancient religions and how they developed and the psychology behind them and all that type of stuff. So it's actually like kind of really cool in that way. But again, is it a belief that, again, this is carried on in a lot of cultures where there's supernatural powers behind the material universe, that there's something going on, that there's a deity or consciousness or something that is in control of the universe. And if we just can tap into that power, we can do the same thing. We can be like little deities on earth, and we can change the world and what we want to see happen and blah, 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 blah. So
you're really selling it.
Yeah. It was kind of what I'm reading. It seems like the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, that would all be kind of fall into this paganism bucket too.
Yes.
Yeah. What, like even maybe Hindu beliefs?
It's a little tricky when we get into like modern, like people that are self-practicing. Like a Hindu would not consider themselves pagan. Like they wouldn't, even though they're polytheistic and they have very specific practices to that religion. But the difference is that they have a lot of history and rituals and beliefs that have carried, like I think it's the oldest religion in the world. over the centuries, you know, that they can trace back, you know, there's actually like historical evidence they can point to and all these different things. And the thing is, though, for pagans, we know like the Greeks had a pantheon and they had gods that they worshipped, but we don't know what those rituals were. We can kind of do some guesswork. Archaeologists can kind of say like, well, we know like if they were worshiping Hades, there's a certain cave that they would go to, they think, based on archaeological evidence. And we know some of their practices, like, you know, putting coins with a dead person so you can pay the toll to go across the souls of the dead and stuff like that. So we know those things, but we don't know the extent to what certain rituals were. So modern pagans will kind of mishmash. They will find either they will find out what archaeological evidence that we have that and people have brought into the understanding of what these rituals were, and combine it with their own idea of how this goes. It's usually a good idea because if, let's say, you're into like a certain pantheon, and like in Greece, like if you're a Vistic virgin, you were like put into like a temple or underground as a sacrifice, you know, depending on, you know, what certain energies and things like the ancients believe. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So or we don't do animal sacrifices, so we have to kind of transition away from these unethical practices and bring our own modern twist to it, so there's no harm happening to anybody, and plus it would be illegal and bad, so don't do those things.
Yeah,
So
you know, that's a great point that you mentioned. I think a lot of people probably have the idea that like, oh, pagans and Satanists as well, is that, oh, it must be a lot of animal sacrifice, but you're saying that's actually not correct. That's a myth, as it were.
No, because if you really think about it, like for pagans, if you are a pagan, you are venerating nature. You are having appreciation for its power and all these different things. And we're a part of nature. Animals are a part of nature. So if I believe like my cat, like a cat has magical powers, and it would be offensive to maybe my deity or just in general to myself, there's a little bit of a like that thinking goes, that it morally is unethical, but on a spiritual level, it's also bad to harm animals and stuff like that. So, or people, like it just, it's a myth. It's a complete myth that, you know, we would hurt anything like nature, because a lot of pagans too are very environmentalists. They care about the earth. They care about preservation. You'll find a lot of vegans and stuff like that, because of the fact that the pagan community, and I believe this too, well, and I still believe it, like, you know, that nature is precious and this is the only planet we got. This is our home and we have to take care of it. You know, so that is a moral that's taught, that you are part of nature, nature's part of you, and you have to take care of it. That's our job as the stewards of living on this planet.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So
Good
paganism and polytheism is not the same thing.
No, they're not.
Okay,
Sorry.
got it. All right, got it.
Yeah,
That's kind of how I was taught as a Christian, that everything that worshiped more than one god was pagan.
No, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, I was taught as a Christian that everything except the version that we had was, you know, pagan and or you're going to hell. So
yeah, well, that's the leftover, like the idea of putting like because like, you know, I grew up Catholic and known people that belong to like Baptists and other like evangelical faiths and all that type of crap, and you're taught to question, like, don't, like, this is the good place, like over here, like stay over here. And then if you start thinking and go, well, maybe, you know, those pagans are bad. Because I've had people ask me when I was pagan, like if I had orgies and sacrificed animals and, you know, all that type of stuff. And I was like, no, I mean, like the orgy thing, that's none of your damn business. But like hurting animals, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Or my usual answer was like, well, we were going to sacrifice virgins, but we couldn't find any. And we did try goats, but they kick. So we decided it was too much trouble.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
That's great. So this may be one of those examples of like a smear campaign, you know, that the other religionists have put out about paganism.
Yeah, because during like especially in the 80s when the satanic panic was going on, like Wicca and paganism kind of got roped into all that stuff because they were talking, you remember they were talking about like if you owned like a tarot deck, or you know, if you went to a psychic, you know, or you play Dungeons and Dragons, you know, everything was satanic and was going, and the devil's gonna get you, so you better stay away from the occult, that magic bullshit, because the devil's gonna get you and you're gonna get demons in your house or in your soul or whatever, you know. And it was just, you know, and then that got roped in with like pedophilia and killing people and killing children and putting them in cages and all that bullshit. You know, we're hearing it again, you know, now. So it's the same pony show, like over and over again.
Yep.
So yeah, so we're going to talk more about like the polytheism side. So polytheism is the worship of or belief in multiple deities, which are usually assembled into a pantheon of gods and goddesses. So again, Greek, Egyptian, Celtic, Norse, these are all examples of polytheism and pantheons, you know, different gods for different jobs. And so there's along with their own religions and rituals. So if someone like is really into Egyptology, and like there are really good records of their rituals in ancient Egypt, which is great because we have so much information. Those rituals are going to be different than the person that is into like Celtic pantheons and their religion and things like that, because they're two completely different cultures. They're going to have different practices. Their beliefs are going to look different. But what's interesting about most ancient religions, if they're polytheistic, a lot of the symbolisms of the gods and goddesses transfer from culture to culture to culture. You will have a blacksmith god. You will have a mother goddess figure, a father god. You will have the maiden, you know, the innocent virgin, you know, that, you know, all these things transfer from all over the world of a polytheistic thing, because it's reflecting the human psychology and the human experience we go to. You know, if anybody has read Joseph Campbell, he talks a lot about this, and is you know, the Hero of a Thousand Faces, or any of his myth writings. I'm kind of remember the name of the goddamn book, but I'm blanking on it. I'll look it up later. But he talks a lot about how over, you know, the gods go through trials and tribulations, and they're usually flawed. It's not a lot of pagan religions, because their gods reflect how we are. They have human frailty. They, you know, I mean, like Aphrodite, if you don't think she is the most beautiful goddess, she will smite you. She's jealous. Like, I'm the most fairest goddess, so worship me. And if you think anybody else is pretty, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to curse you. And jealousy is a very human emotion. So, and that's why, you know, it's attractive, because if you can see, because your God is always a reflection of the culture and the psychology of people in that culture, you know, and what they value.
Oh, so you can relate to there's a much higher opportunity to relate, to see yourself in what is being presented in paganism, as opposed to Like I may not be able to relate to something in Christianity unless I kind of force it or something, but in paganism, it's like everything is almost represented in there.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's attractive, because in like monotheistic religions, you're taught that God is perfect and he's kind of unattainable.
Yeah.
And there's a standard that you're supposed to meet to, getting good with him, what, and like you have to be forgiven for being human and being a fuck up, even though God kind of caused this, but it's complicated. Where if if you have jealousy issues, and Aphrodite, like is the most beautiful goddess there is, goddess of like love and erotica and all that type of stuff. If you go, oh, I can be jealous, I've been, I don't like it if, my partner thinks that somebody else is attractive, and I feel that jealousy. That is very relatable, and it feels a little bit more personable
Right.
than trying to achieve some kind of understanding with your deity way up here, like with a god figure that you can't connect to because he's unknowable.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can relate to a carpenter, but it'd be hard to relate to someone who's perfect and can turn water into
Right.
wine and stuff like that.
That would be a great skill, but I have yet to attain that ability.
And another thing too, not all pagans are polytheistic. You can be a pagan and worship Jesus. Jesus can be your deity. You can, if you're really into like Odin, and out of all the all the North pantheon, you just really like Odin, and that's the god you want to worship, you can just worship Odin, or you don't have to worship any god or goddess. You can just think that there's a universal power in nature, and you can do and just connect with like this divine energy that flows through the universe and everything in the earth and blah 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 blah, and you can do that.
So this is very much then kind of a choose your own, flavor, choose your own adventure kind of situation. And so the other pagans in your group are not, would you be in a group with other practitioners who worship the same gods and goddesses, or could you be in a group where everybody has kind of a different mixture of who they're worshiping and everybody's okay with that?
Like the way we operated our group, they were all pagan, but they had kind of a different flavor of it, and we would actually make them learn about it and teach a class on it.
Oh,
And like if there was a subject they really wanted to learn, we'd be like, okay, you learn about it.
yeah.
If you need, me, my partner's help, we will help you, but you're going to teach a class on it. That was because we took the attitude that everybody's a teacher and everybody's a student. So, and we had to learn off of each other. Other groups, like if you get really into like Dianic witchcraft, which is very female oriented, you can just work with like female deities, and that's the top on the hierarchy, which is very female women based. You can, if you wanted to worship Pan, and that's a very like sex mischievous god, and you're you're male dominant, and you can want to worship that way, you can do that too. So it's one of those things that like with paganism, it is choose your own adventure. Like whatever you want to do, you can kind of do it, because there's no dogma. We have basically making it up as you go. Because we don't have a lot of that history, because a lot of the history that's been lost, it was oral, and we can kind of get ideas from, what those rituals were like. If it has very detailed history, that's very helpful, but still we don't know exactly what like people are doing like 2,000 years ago, that were in a pagan cult somewhere, like people are still trying to figure out like, everything that happened at Stonehenge, and there's different theories about why that ritual space was used and why it was built. And we keep getting new information about it, but like we don't know exactly what happened there and what kind of things they were performing and stuff like that. So you have to guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we're going to talk about Wicca, because Wicca is the most recognizable form of paganism, especially to Westerners. And the two people that is considered the father and mother of modern Wicca would be, first is my dude, Gerald Gardner.
Your
He was an
dude?
yeah, my dude, he's a trip, man. Okay. Gerald Gardner was an amateur archaeologist, author, creator of Gardnerian Wicca, which is like it's because there's different forms of Wicca, but like he was like one of the bigger central figures. And I recommend learning about Gardner and all the shit he did to get this religion started, because he like stole ideas from other witch groups in England, and he
Wait,
thought
which groups?
like witch groups, like there's witches in England, and he started infiltrating them and
I see what you did
learning
there.
witchcraft. Yeah, it's witch. So he's a trip.
Yeah.
And like the joke in even in the pagan community is that Gerald Gardner created a religion just to dance around a fire naked with other ladies. Like that's what he wanted. Because the thing about Wicca is, and other pagan religions, is very sex positive, which is great. So if you're, if Christianity feels a little too, confining when it comes to like, sex, and it's like, let's create a religion that's based on nature, and sex is a part of nature. So, and we can do a religion, that venerates sex and what it does and stuff like that. So, kind of go with that. So he got involved with Doreen Valiente. She is the mother of modern witchcraft, a published author and former acting high priestess of the Gardener's Coven, Bricket Wood. She was also a feminist author in the 1960s. So she's very into like the goddess figure, and she did write some writings on feminist literature and the female liberation that was happening in the 1960s. So but it's in that lens of the goddess and that kind of point of view, which kind of leads into why witchcraft and alternative religions really started taking off in the 60s and 70s, because we're seeing this huge culture shift away from like the Leave It to Beaver stage, and we're seeing it in the culture with like cinema and TV shows and the counterculture movement and all these different things. We're seeing that shift start to happen. And people started getting very there, and everybody in the 60s was looking for a guru. And they're trying to find some kind of difference away from like organized religion into like, Indian mysticism and, dropping acid and connecting with the universe or whatever it was. So, and because the feminist movement was moving forward at the time, women started taking on that mantle of witch. I have power, I have my own ability to create what I want. I'm not going to listen to no man, that type of stuff, so symbolically, even if you didn't identify as pagan, the idea of the witch, which is a symbol of women having power, is a powerful message. And we see it all the time in our culture now with movies and TV, the idea of the witch and her ability to control the fates and things like that, and I think that's a really good idea of how those ideas get planted into the consciousness, and but then people like turned it into religion, and that's what happened with these two. But yeah, I totally recommend, if you can, I recommended a book on Gerald Gardner. That is a trip. And I'll also have a link for you, for Eric, for a couple of writings by Doreen Valiente. You can put into the description. Other notable
I've got the links, and they'll be in the YouTube description, and I'll drop them in the chat as well. For the book, I think that you recommended was Witchcraft: A Life of Gerald Gardner.
Yeah,
there's like it's a 2-volume book.
It's a
lot.
It's a lot, because it's these people, like, they're symbols within the pagan. It's like any like person that's done any sort of notable work within a religion, and he's considered like the guru in the Wicca community and stuff like that. But we also make fun of him too, because he's a little wackadoo. So we kind of make fun. We never, and like the thing about like pagans also too, we don't take ever like authors and central figures like really seriously, because there's no dogma and nobody's going to come down on us for like making fun of Gardner. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Other notable figures is Aleister Crowley, the most evil man in England, whatever. Okay, no. Aleister Crowley was also a trip of a person. He was nuts. Like, he was into doing opium, and he was bisexual, and he got really into Egyptian witchcraft and Freemasonry, and he claimed he went to Egypt and had a spiritual experience while he was in Egypt. And I think one of the gods appeared to him and told him that this is the religion you need to follow. And he was like channeling some goddess and whatever. I don't know. I think he smoked opium before he went in the pyramid. And the drug kicked in. That's what happened.
Then an alien came down, and that's how we got the fifth element.
But it's all coming together now.
Yeah, like he didn't murder anybody. He practiced witchcraft, and then because he was a counterculture person in conservative England, and he traveled a lot, and he was also kind of a sex perv. He tried to have sex with men that weren't gay. But he would try to have sex with them, and say it was part of like the spiritual experience. So I definitely recommend reading the autobiography about him, A Magic Life. It is awesome. So another notable figure is Margaret Murray. She was an anthropologist that studied in tribal cultures pagan practices and the influence of those. So that's more of like on the academic side. And Raymond Buckland is another notable figure that took some of Gerald Gardner's teachings and moved it into a higher ceremonial magic, which is very, like, if you want to see a show, go to a high magic ritual, because it is trippy. There's a lot more theatrics to it. It's taken more somber, more seriously, and like the energy that's generated, I'm using my quotes, energy that's created is supposed to be higher and more potent or whatever, and I've been to those rituals, and I had feelings that I was experiencing something really magical, but I was also high. And two, because you're quiet and you're taking it seriously and all this type of stuff, and it's that group psychology thing, and expecting something to happen and stuff like that, that you'll feel that kind of shift. But he's considered one of a really important author within the Wiccan community. We have his book of magic, which is called Uncle Bucky's Big Blue Book, and it describes a lot of high magical rituals and stuff like that, and where that came from and stuff like that. So if you want to read books about weird people that practice witchcraft, like, there's a plethora of them, and it's trippy, because I love this stuff, because I'll just, now that I'm out of it and I'm looking back on like these people and I read about them, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you have some interesting ideas, man. and because it's like a hodgepodge of science, again, quote unquote, science and mysticism and new age belief. It's a hodgepodge of weird. So
And I'm definitely seeing some parallels in some of these stories too, of like the figures that are, let me get in charge of this religious group that I made up so I can have sex with everyone, kind of thing, that we see in other, religious figures in recent times as well. So definitely seeing some parallels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As you were kind of reading through some of these biographies of some of these founding people, were you able to see their influence on how you practiced paganism? Were you able to kind of connect what they were describing way back then to what you were doing in your 20s and 30s?
Gardner was, because I started studying Wicca first, and then I became an eclectic pagan as time went on. But I started off as a solitary practitioner, which means I didn't practice with anybody. I just read books and learned about different rituals online, or one of the resources that one of the first books I read was The Atheist Guide to Wicca and Witchcraft. That was my first book. It's great. If you, because it's very like breaks everything down. If you like, you were beginning witchlet and you wanted to learn about the religions.
Witchlet?
A witchlet, yeah.
I love
What
it.
a fantastic word. That's so great.
So,
Oh,
so when you're a fledgling little witchlet, like that was like my first book. And as you read it, it kind of just breaks everything down. And then once you start kind of moving beyond the beginner level, like you want to advance, you want to learn more, you see how it evolved, like from, because if especially if you're studying Wicca, it has an evolution through time, and you'll see different authors that they take things that Gardner and Doreen Valiente were doing and kind of expanded on it as things went along, because just like anybody else, you know, if you want some clout and you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you have to add your own kind of ideas to it. Like Buckland was really into color magic, where color had a certain energy vibration to it, not like, you know, how it like, you know, reacts to the cones in your eyes and stuff like that, and you know, that kind of thing on physics. It was like it had an energy, and that energy would influence how your spell was going to turn out, depending on like what kind of witchcraft you wanted to do. So I saw an expansion of that idea, which Gardner didn't really talk about that much. So influences. I have a little picture that says, "We worship nature. Don't laugh. We can prove it exists." So there's one major influence. The biggest is nature itself, as I said before. So there's literal and literary adoration of nature. That is like the big thing in paganism, is like nature is the most powerful force. And it is. I'm not like, I can't make a hurricane and a hurricane can kill me. So yes, and so can bears. So nature is more powerful than me. So, and this translates back from like, where our ancestors didn't understand, again, how like a hurricane worked. They didn't understand about, you know, the ocean gets warm, there's rising heat, and then it, you know, all the thing, and barometric pressure drops, and then winds, and then boom, bad. So, but they needed a way to give some kind of explanation to what was happening. And like we're kind of seeing this in Jane Goodall observed this, and we're starting to see it in the apes that are moving towards the Stone Age. She was observing a troop of chimpanzees, and lightning struck a tree and a forest fire started to happen, and the monkeys started bringing stones to that tree and it seems to be like a prototype of like appeasing to something that seems powerful, like connecting the two, you know. And it's just something that's hardwired into our ape brain, that we have to, something happens and we're seeing a pattern and we're finding the pattern or connecting the two, because the ape doesn't understand that, you know, lightning happened and it hit a tree and caused a fire. It just knows the bad happened, and it seemed to happen from those two things. So let me see if I can do something to appease it so it doesn't happen again, because it was super scary.
That's what you think that's what they thought the rocks were for, was to appease. Okay.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Kara.
No, I was just going to say, that's really fascinating to see. Like, I think there's B.F. Skinner also did some studies with like animals developing like superstitious beliefs based on just, you know, random events happening and trying to, you know, connect a pattern, you know, to something that it was just random. But, you know, we have this tendency to try and make a story or a narrative out of seemingly unconnected events, even if they are unconnected.
Yeah. And that's what really fascinated me, because when I remember studying Skinner when I was doing my psych classes, and that whole study and things like that. And I thought that was because, you know, behavioral psychology, we really have a good good understanding, for psychology, for, how we behave and stuff like that, because we see it in our animal cousins, and when you start putting the things together, you're like, oh, that's why we're always trying to put those patterns together, because that's what paganism is. It's the same with any religion. You're trying to put a pattern together. So I'll go into that a little bit more later, like how magic works again, quotes, as we go along.
We're not going to learn how to cast real spells. What?
No,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
man.
I am not Professor McGonagall. I apologize.
You're more of a Trelawney.
No.
Oh, good time.
No, I like Trelawney. She's a good dresser.
Yes.
That's how you dress in paganism. Like you dress like a hippie, like long shawls and flowing dresses, and you can't, like, you have to out Wicca the Wicca, basically. You have to do your wickedness.
Outstanding.
Another thing too, like you can do robes. Like I have a couple robes that I have one that was made for me as a high priestess robe. It's like blue velvet and it's like trimmed and it's really pretty. It looks great on Halloween and stuff now. But I live in Florida and it's so damn hot that I can't wear it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I like to wear it. Like I wish I could wear it to fair, because I could just be like, I'm a witch, and walk around my robe and look all like medieval and stuff.
Yes.
So anyway, so there's a romantic interest, I said, in primitive religion, because it is very romantic. I love going to the medieval fair, and there's a lot of witchy hippie people there. It's like moths to a flame. If there's a red fair in town, the pagans will show up. But do I want to live in medieval England? No, because I want to be a peasant. And 2, leeches were considered a good form of medicine. And there was no plumbing.
Also, I saw that Monty Python movie where, she's a witch and
she had a mole or something.
Yeah, she had a mole. Turn me into a newt.
I got better.
So there's that romantic kind of interest in it. Like we're taking the aesthetics of these ancient religions and practices and bringing them into the modern age. That, like, again, remember I said, like, you don't see them sacrificing animals anymore. That's because we decided that's bad. One, illegal. And so, but we're going to take there is an idea of sacrifice in the pagan religion, but it comes down to like almost like a Christianity version of it, like during Lent or something. Like you give up like a vice you have,
more personal sacrifice.
Yeah, it's personal sacrifice. Yeah, okay. Instead of like an outer sacrifice, where you're gonna butcher a goat and then burn the goat, so your god can know that you burned the goat, because the fire and the smoke was considered going up to the heavens, and that had a power. This is how we do weird things and think things are connected, because we see things happen like, well, obviously my god lives in the sky, and if I sacrifice the goat and air is going to carry it into the sky, that means I have to do the thing so the god knows, and this way I'll have a good crops this season. Weird stuff like that. It's just the connection and everything. So
I think that God just likes to smell a barbecue.
He does, yes. I do recommend, have you seen The Wicker Man, the original one? From
Nicolas Cage?
Those are examples, like what they like, because of the Druidery, and they featured the golden bough in that movie, and that is a really good early 20th century extensive information on pagan religions in like England and Scotland, and that central white European thing of and it's a really good movie on cults, like how cults operate. So it's I love that movie. It's 70s cheesy, and it's Christopher Lee, and I could watch that man read the phone book like when he was alive. I loved him. I miss him very much. So it's a great movie. I even if you don't want to learn about paganism, it's just a good movie. You have to see that movie.
Yeah, it got recommended to me by either Netflix or Prime, I don't remember, and I watched it, and as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I thought that Nicolas Cage was the reason that the newer version was, you know, weird and off the rails, but no, the original is also, it's off the rails. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
got some history
absolutely.
to it.
So also with another influence is like speculations of the great goddess cult of antiquity. I recommend two books. One is When God Was a Woman, and the other one is The Alphabet versus the Goddess. Both of those books are really good. They're okay. Both books, especially The Alphabet versus the Goddess, it is a text and it is like a chunk book. But what's really interesting about both of these books, they look back at like how these goddess religions way back kind of evolved into a masculine monotheistic sort of idea, like as time went on, because like way back, people didn't understand how sex made baby. You had sex, but they didn't put the connection, like, you know, you have sex, sperm gets released, egg, woman gets pregnant, baby, 9 months baby. They didn't put the two and two together. They just knew woman made baby and made life. Baby comes out, we have baby, yay, we have and it was considered like this creator goddess image. And also she also had a symbol, like if you can create life, you are also cause of death, you know, and you'll see that in a lot of polytheistic ideas of the death goddess. Like you'll see it in the Morgan, you'll see it in the Gray Lady, in some mythologies. You'll see it like Hel in Norse mythologies, these powerful dark goddesses, you know, that represent death, because the symbolism kind of carried over culturally, and they started personifying those ideas. And then as time went on, you'll still have polytheistic religion, but like, you know, the goddesses aren't as important, like with Zeus and with Osiris and Ra and, you know, Odin, like, you know, the goddess starts slowly taking a back seat. And then as time goes on, and because of the influence of Christianity, no more feminine worship. Like all the saints are men, pretty much. There's a few that are women, but most are men, you know, and that kind of thing. So, and it's a really good, if you're interested in that stuff and how, you know, religion and mythology evolved and why we've gotten away from the female archetype, they're both really good reads. Another thing about it is, so I mentioned like England. Like merry old England, Europe. We as Americans, we love Europe. Especially if you're like a white, you know, and I mean white, like white ethno, like you can trace your heritage back to like England and Germany and, you know, all that type of stuff. Like it, and like, cause it's old, you know, the people there are familiar to us as white, you know, people that live, you know, in the United States or whatever. And there's a lot of history and it has a lot of pagan myth and culture in that. So, you know, there's an attraction to that, you know. Another thing is that there's a lot of anthropological speculation about witchcraft, because there is, because people were definitely doing rituals and witchcraft and things like that. You know, and that kind of turned into like, you know, the witch being bad and, you know, that crap. So, but there are ideas, there were certain symbols and ideas that people were doing magic back then. So it has that revisioning of it, you know, in the modern age. But this is, okay, so this isn't in such a, remember I was talking about like the 1960s and 70s and the feminist movement going forward and stuff like that. Okay, so at that time, and this still kind of happens, though it's not so much anymore, but it's still, because we have a better understanding of history and we're not trying to rewrite it, of a romantic revisioning of the witch persecutions of early modern Europe. Okay. Now we know that most of these men and women were not witches. They were either like they own land that somebody wanted, or, you know, they pissed somebody off, you know, or
too uppity.
you were too uppity. Yeah, you talk too much in church. You're like an old woman and you're considered a burden on society because, you know, the people around you got to take care of you. You know, a woman wanted to, like, you know, make baskets and sell them, and men didn't like that. So, you know, we're going to call her a witch. Like, you could get accused for a witch for anything, you know. Like, you know, you're the woman in the village that does like the healing stuff, and then somebody's cow dies, and then you curse them, and then now you're a witch. So we understand that there were probably people in this group that did practice like witchcraft, you know, but it was probably like folk magic, you know, that type of thing, or like they were the town healer, you know, that would happen to be a female, or like the midwife. Too many babies die, especially if you're a person of influence like a noble. Somebody can accuse you of being a witch, blah blah blah. But at the time in the 60s and 70s, people within the witchcraft movement like started saying that this was like the witches, like pretty much everybody was a witch, one, and two, like they were persecuted for practicing like witchcraft as a religion and all this type of stuff. So they kind of took on that martyr idea instead of looking at the whole context of why this was happening and really understand the history and the psychology and the cultural influences at that time. They kind of adopted like this martyrism, and which is kind of gross because we know way better now like what happened at that time. And that's not so much now because we know a lot of the history now and we have a different way of contextualizing it and understanding it more. But because the feminist movement and this need to feel a little bit like we've been victimized, and we've been victimized for centuries, you know, and kind of adopting that, which now is kind of, it's gross, but that was a thing.
Fair enough.
So I touched on this a little bit before with influences and ceremonial magic and Freemasonry. So, but the cool thing, this is actually kind of cool. So I talked about the ceremonial magic stuff when I was talking about Crowley and that kind of thing, and Raymond Buckland and stuff like that. But the Freemasonry is really cool. So in Europe, there are ancient churches that have pagan symbolism in their architecture, because Freemasons were illiterate for the most part, but they were hired to carve stone, and they were hired by churches to do the work. Okay. And you can go to certain churches and there is goddess symbolism for their deities at the time. They'll have like the green man carved into like pillars and all this type of stuff, or like gargoyles.
The green man?
The green man is a Celtic god, and he is considered like he's a sage god, and he's like old, like has the wisdom of like an old man.
Okay.
And
all I knew of him as was just selling me green beans, but I'm glad to hear that there was.
Yeah. No, that's Green Giant.
That's not the same one.
That's Green Giant. But like no, but like there's like it's like basically a face like made out of leaves and branches and stuff like that.
I've seen
like
that.
the personification of a male earth god.
Okay.
You know, and within you know that Celtic symbolism and stuff like that, and you'll see like certain flowers that represent like roses and stuff like that represent like the female and stuff like that. You have to kind of know what you're looking for, but if you understand like pagan symbolism, you'll see these are in like some really ancient churches like dotting things in Europe. We're going to move on to what this doctrine or code of morality is in paganism, but specifically Wicca. So I'm going to read the first part of the Wiccan Read, which is basically, it's longer than this, but basically it gives like a beginning example of how you as a Wicca witch should behave. So the first part is, by the Wiccan law, ye must, in perfect love and perfect trust. 8 words that Wiccan re-fulfill, ain't ye harm none, do what ye will. What's ye said forth comes back to thee, so ever mind the law of 3. Follow this witch mind and heart, marry ye meet and marry ye part. So there's 2 things. So we're going to go into like the laws again, quote unquote, of magic when you think you have magical powers. Okay. So first part is, ain't ye harm none, do what ye will. So basically this is white magic. White magic is pure magic, where any spell work you do, you're not going to curse anybody, you're not going to wish any harm on anyone. Like it's usually spell work for like abundance and protection and healing and all that jazzy stuff. So you can do what you want as long as you're plan not to hurt anybody. So that's one, because pagans believe in karma, and energy is cyclical. So if I go out and harm somebody, like I do spell work to harm, it's going to come back to me threefold. So an example of this would be like, Eric's made me mad.
Wait a minute.
Made me mad somehow, and I'm feeling vengeful. Okay, so I ask some deity or whatever to like, for him to get a flat tire on his way to work or something like that. Like for him to have a bad day. Basically, I want him to have a bad day. Like have a series of unfortunate events. And then on the flip side, but the thing is though, if I do that because I'm wishing for him to have a bad day, I'm putting the energy out there for that to happen, it's going to come back to me threefold. So instead of, so he might have a bad day, but I'll have like a bad month.
Oh. So if I get a flat tire, you get like 3 flat tires.
Right, exactly. Exactly. That energy comes back to you 3 times. So that kind of the idea is that it's kind of keep the bad mojo away, quote unquote. So that's why that is in the Wiccan Read. But other forms of paganism would, they practice like gray magic, which is, again, what it sounds like, gray. It's like, let's say you have somebody gossiping about you at work and you want them to stop, you would do like a binding spell to keep them from doing that, because then you're taking a little bit of somebody's free will away. So it's considered a gray area, but it's also to protect you. And then there's black magic, which is, curses and, plagues or whatever, like it's just, so there's the tier kind of level depending on how you're practicing it and stuff like that, but there's loopholes. So so you can, let's say I do the thing for Eric to have a bad day, I can do a protection spell on top of the spell for him to have a bad day, and that the energy I'm protected from the negative consequence of that.
Well,
because there's always loopholes.
Wait a minute. That sounds like it just goes right past this law of 3 thing that they were talking about.
Yeah. Well, like the thing is that if you're doing Wicca and you're following the read, you're not supposed to do that. But
okay.
If you are doing some other form of witchcraft or whatever, you can, and you're not Wiccan. Keep in mind, I'm just using Wicca as the catch-all for pagan religions because it's the most one easily recognized, but because there's different forms of witchcraft and what people do and because there are no real rules and we're making it up as we go along, you can do spell work like that and you won't have any consequences.
Oh, I see how this sort of comes together with that, development of the superstition where, like, so let's say someone does that and they cast their spell and their protection spell, and then nothing bad happens to them. and now they conclude, well, the protection spell worked.
Exactly.
So,
It's
I see.
that is the correlation is not causation.
Mhm.
Well, on the flip side too, if I did some sort of spell to make Kara wealthy, would that come back to me in 3 ways, 3 times too? Like she'd get 1,000, I get $3,000.
Hopefully, yes. But
I would hope so too.
but again, like there's caveats because
I
it's
don't
just
see a
like,
whole
how
lot of
psychics
wealthy pagans.
how psychics never guess like the right lottery numbers.
Right.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same in like paganism. Like the excuse is that abundance will come to you when it's meant to come to you.
Okay.
Mm.
And it gets like you can do money spells. Like you would like I used to like on my altar I would put like a dollar bill like in the center of my altar and use like mint and basil because those are symbols of wealth and abundance and the like mythology and stuff, like how people associate things.
Well, I
It's
mean,
weird.
money's made in a mint, so that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
makes sense.
So
But
yeah, but the idea is that energy is going to go into the dollar bill, and then I'll start seeing like maybe around the same time I get like more hours at work, or I get a raise.
I see.
So the idea is you're associating because you've psychologically tricked yourself to believe that the spell is working.
Mhm.
And there's also a law that says like it's kind of like the genie in Aladdin that like you can't make anyone fall in love. Can't raise anybody from the dead. You can't make anyone fall in love with you.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 rules.
Well, that totally goes against that love potion number 9 thing. I was completely
Right?
thinking
Exactly.
that was a
So
big part of it too.
so like it's one of those things like there's like caveats and like magic, like you can't take away someone's free will and stuff like that. So like let's say like I'm single and I want a partner. Okay, so I can do a spell to attract love, but I can't make a specific person fall in love with me because I am technically taking away their free will. If they do happen to fall in love with me, it's because it was meant to happen. Okay, so yeah.
This is kind of like how, in Christianity, you can pray for anything you want, but sometimes God is going to say no.
God has a plan. It's the same thing. It's the same,
Okay.
like making random connections with random bullshit. So it's all the same. It's just that this is more of like witchcraft is actually a very meditative and relaxing process. Like I do kind of really like the way it does, because you're using aromatherapy. You're it's very ritualized. You're doing this pattern. You're in this kind of relaxed meditative state, especially if you're like some witches and you smoke a bong before you do some witchcraft. I'm promoting that. I'm just saying that it happens. And that it can be like, it's like prayer, when you're in church or you're praying by yourself and you're chanting or saying words, your body relaxes and you get in kind of into that like meditative mode, and stuff like that. And it does feel nice because you're kind of chilled, you're in this like good, happy place, It's just that you have to realize that you're psychologically tricking yourself, and and the brain likes to relax,
Right. This is working because you're relaxing and meditating, not because the herbs are doing something in particular.
Right, exactly. And like I said too, again, there is no dogma in this religion. We do not have a holy book. We have books on pagan practices and rituals and deity worship or non-deity worship, different types of magic, all that stuff. And like anyone can write a book on like witchcraft and that shit. You can do it. But because the person or a group of witches called a coven. So if you belong to a certain coven or you practice by yourself, it's basically up to the people that are participating what they want to do.
We hear a lot about like spell books, and they're like covered in human skin or goat skin or whatever. You know, that's kind of like the mythology we hear. It's in Hollywood and stuff. But is that a thing too? Are there special books that have contained spells?
Yeah, I have a couple. It's called a grimoire, by the way, which is an old word for spell book. And I have a couple, and they're not made from human skin or goat skin, unfortunately. Again, can't find the virgins, and the goats can't. So
Fair.
can't get
You'd
that
have to
stuff.
use a lot of lotion to keep that book, you know, supple.
It's a lot of
Just
it's a lot of
put
work.
it in the basket.
Yeah.
But like, you know, but we do have pagans do have spell books that they write certain spells. It's kind of like a journal too. Like you can write about, you like do a spell and then write about what happened. And it's and you, like I found one of my, I'm cleaning out my house right now, and I was opening like a box of old books, and I found like my book of shadows. It's either called a grimoire or a book of shadows, depends on what you want to call it, from like 2008. And I was like,
Wow.
whoa, memory lane. And I'm flipping through it, and I was like, oh, I was in that place at that time. And I'm like, oh, that's the bullshit I wrote. Huh. So, but that's kind of what, and like, like there's all these superstitious beliefs, like nobody's supposed to read your grimoire. It's like your diary, you know, like it's really bad. Like if you do tarot, nobody should touch your, like you have to cleanse your tarot cards because there'll be different energies in the cards before you give somebody a reading and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all like hocus pocus, you know, ideas, or you have to like put sage over somebody before ritual to clean their aura, you know, that all this type of hoopla. Yeah. And sage smells really nice when it's burning, and like I'm not gonna lie, it does smell very pretty. So we're gonna get a little more deeper into the magic side. So magic is essentially in paganism is a formalized prayer, as I was saying before. Like it is a very meditative sort of practice where you're kind of taking a lot of steps to talk to yourself.
I can see that now. All right. Yeah.
So, and also like I said before, you can use magic for anything. You can worship to worship a deity. You can to alter, again, I'm using my quotes, alter situations in reality. You can do it for a Sabbath if you're celebrating like a certain holiday, or like a plethora of other reasons, like this, like think of The Secret, like, you know, for all you people that were into like kind of into the, like this new age woo shit, like it's kind of like The Secret, like it's just a way of attracting things to you that you want, you know. Like some people put up like a vision board, and they kind of keep that as their focus. This is like having your vision board, but you're doing a ritual to bring forward what you want, you know, instead of like, but there is a caveat though, again, yeah, you can ask for, but you have to do work. Okay, so let's say you're looking for a job and you do a spell, but you don't send out any resumes, you're not going to get a job, because that's not how things work. So it's kind of a joke that like, but the idea is like maybe you do a spell work like for like the ideal job, or for you to get hired sooner than expected, you know, that kind of thing, you know, like again, because then you can associate it with like, oh, you know, I did that spell and I sent out my resume. Now I'm like, I got this really cool job at this firm that I wanted to work at, and like you just put the 2 and 2 together, you know, it's just patterning.
Yeah, it wasn't the resume that had anything to do with
no,
it.
it was the magic.
Yeah, got it.
Exactly.
I am kind of seeing how attractive this is to I feel like you're incredibly powerful, that you can control the universe and the world to make it either good for you or good for everybody else. I can see really how attractive that is, because kind of hanging over here on my side, on the atheism side, I realize kind of like I have very little control. I have responsibility in my life and control about what I can do, but beyond my sphere of influence, there's not much I can do, if anything. It's kind of
right. Yeah, because there are witches that believe that they can control the weather. There are witches they have belief that they're going to, that like their eyes, like I remember when Trump was president, this is just an example, I'm not making a political statement, but there's a group of witches at that time who did a group spell work for the impeachment to have like consequences. Did that happen? No. but that's the thing, that's the belief, because the world is so chaotic and it's so random, and when you're on that, now that we're on like the atheist side, and you have to accept that the universe is chaotic and doesn't give two shits about you, that's a hard pill to swallow. And then when you realize that you only your power is only extends so far for the type of influence and things that you want to see happen, and you have to like actually do work to make things happen that you want to see change. And I know that I'm lazy. So if you can have like that quick fix, or you think you can get it faster, and you do it through, talking to a deity and doing some spell work, it's very, very attractive, and that's why, because we want to have control over our lives, because it makes us feel safe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that too, because it's almost like a way of, it sounds like, motivating yourself to do the steps that you would have had to do anyway. But if you've done the magical spell first, it makes you feel like maybe more confident that the work I put into this next is actually going to pay off, and I feel less hopeless or something.
Yeah, and I do, like, if you wanted to do spell work as a form of a meditative practice, like it does help, because you're priming your brain. Like, let's say I want to find someone I want to date. Okay. And I do a spell to attract love. And then I start going out to bars, and I've primed my brain to look, and I did like, this is the qualities I'm looking for in a partner. And you list out the qualities and you say them out loud, and you add that, and you burn them or whatever, and giving it to like Aphrodite or some kind of love god, or to yourself. It doesn't matter. And even doing it on a symbolic level can help, because again, you're psychologically priming yourself. And then you go out and you meet someone that's charming and funny and good looking. It just helps you identify what you're looking for, because our brains are very chaotic. And if you can kind of take a minute to meditate and say, what do I want, and do it as a form of a ritual, because I love drama, so sure, but you also have to understand that this is all brain trickery. Nothing external is happening. You're just doing something cool and pretty, and feels, because there's, feels cool, but it's just psychological trickery. You're not, nothing outside of yourself is doing anything. Because again, the universe doesn't give two shits about you. Sorry.
You had said the word Sabbat or Sabbat, or something. I almost heard Sabbath, but it wasn't quite that. What is that word?
It's Sabbath.
Sabbath, but it's
Sabbath.
not Sabbath like a Sunday. It doesn't have the H at the end, does it?
It has the same origin word. It's a holy day.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's a holy day. So, but in paganism, it is based off the wheel of the year. So, like I mentioned, we're coming up on Ostara, which is the spring equinox. That is a Sabbath. It celebrates we're moving from winter to spring. The next one will be on May 1st, which is Beltane. And this is all based on harvest cycles. So at Ostara, that is a start with, like, the ground is thawed out. We're going to start planting. And we'll have a ritual for that.
Cool word. I like that one a lot. I've also heard the word Samhain.
Yes.
Okay.
You said it right. It's Samhain. That is the end. So that is the end of the pagan year. And this is in the Celtic mythology, that that is like, we have, so at Ostara is the beginning of the harvest season. We went through the summer, everything was in abundance. And then we go into fall. I'm blanking the name of the holiday right now, but there is one where it's like pagan Thanksgiving. Okay, so we have all our crops, and we're going to have a meal, and we're going to share, and all that type of stuff. Samhain, which is Halloween, is the end of the pagan year, because we are ending our time of abundance. We have food and storage. We have sacrificed our animals, you know, our agricultural animals to get us through the winter, and because the earth is going to sleep. And this is also the belief too, that the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. And you'll also see this in Latina cultures with the Day of the Dead. Those sort of, you see this also in like in Asia with the Hungry Ghost festivals that they have and stuff like that. It's always that around that time of year when that veil between the living and the dead it starts to become and you'll see like ancestor altars and connecting with the people that have passed and things like that. Like around Halloween, I still put up pictures of my relatives and remember who they were and connect with them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a really, I like that. I mean, like I love Halloween, is my favorite holiday because I love spooky shit. Love it. But also on a more like personal connection side, like kind of remembering where I came from. Like, and I also do it on a broader spectrum because like if my ancestors hadn't survived really, really terrible things, I wouldn't be here. And it's a lot, it's on a human level, that journey that helped us evolve and get to where we are now, where it's humbling sometimes when you think about it in like a broader scale, you know. So those are the type of things I kind of connect with, because as you're going through the Sabbaths for the year, everything represents something that should be going on internally versus the external. So if the world that we're ending the year, we're looking back on the year, we're looking back on the past, it's a good time to remember those who came before us, you know, and connect with those things on top of having like ghouls and, you know, spirits and stuff like that, which is based on like old traditions from Europe. Like instead of carving like pumpkins, they carved turnips. And they would do like scary faces and put them in their windows to scare away like spirits that they thought, because if the veil's the thinnest out, your relatives are going to show up, you're going to get like the weirdos too. So that was a belief. Dressing up in costumes, lighting bonfires. They would wear like scary clothes, again, like to be part, like the idea also too, like in some mythology, is that the spirits want to recognize you and you want to feel like you're part of it. So you would wear like scary things, you know, and stuff like that. Trick-or-treating came out, like you would go to your neighbor's house and they, as a form of hospitality, they were supposed to give you a gift, like food or drink or, you know, that type of thing. And it was considered not good for the community if you rejected the giving food or drink to your neighbor on Samhain. So that kind of thing. And they would put out like a plate and a drink for like relatives, like a space for them, because they thought they would come to visit and they would join in the family and feasting and stuff like that at that time of the year too. So there's 8 Sabbaths for the year, and it's all based on it's all based on farming. The cycle of the sun, because you lived and died by the sun. That is your lifeline. And if you don't appease the sun and he doesn't take care of Mother Earth, you're not going to survive. Yeah. And then if something bad happened, like, you know, there's a drought or a flood or whatever, or earthquake or whatever it was, that means that you pissed off the god and you got to go appease it now. So that kind of thing. Also too, I have magic written here as M-A-G-I-C-K. That is separated from like your David Copperfield magic.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. Is it different spelling than I'm used to?
Yeah, so this is considered like high, like special power magic. Is the M-I-G-I-C-K, and that's, you'll actually see that in some like ancient writings and stuff like that, that they spelled that way. But and then magic, the without the K, is like David Copperfield and like card tricks and stuff like that. So that's how you differentiate the two within the pagan religion. Also too, though many sects of paganism believe and practice witchcraft, not all of them do. So hashtag not all witches. You don't have to, you can believe in the cycles of nature and that have a, because there is, like this is what I hit like a few years ago before I transitioned out. I stopped doing witchcraft. Like I stopped doing spells because in the degree system I was considered a third degree. I'm not going to go into that right now because I'm not giving a lesson plan on paganism. But when you hit like an upper level, you accept that the universe is going to flow how it's going to flow, and you have to ride the currents of the universal energy. So, and also too, like it's also the idea again with the secret, like think it be it kind of thing.
Okay.
So that kind of thing. So I stopped practicing witchcraft for a while because one, I'm lazy, and two, I've hit this, you know, great cosmic power, you know, ability, you know, and I just decided, I was like, okay, I don't have to do wishcraft anymore. That kind of thing. Some people keep doing it, and that's fine. You know, like if you still believe in woo-woo shit, fine. But I've hit the, you know, at that time I hit the, you know what, I've mastered, I am the master of my universe. So I'm going to stop trying to control the ether, quote unquote.
Oh, okay. It's like in meditation and mindfulness, you know, you reach that point where you're like stopping trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
You just let it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Basically, yeah. Okay. So we're going to get into the woo-woo side. I love talking about woo-woo stuff because I was involved with it for a very long time. I taught people woo-woo stuff. By the way, it's all bullshit. Just keep that in mind. So, okay, so I mentioned like paganism started really taking off in like Wicca, especially in the 60s. Like Gardner started it in like the 30s and 40s, and then over time it started to spread out, came over here, and then and you really see the influence of like Eastern mysticism, mediumship, spiritualism, all that stuff. Like I know pagans that claim they can talk to the dead. I know pagans that can tell your future, quote unquote. I know pagans that believe that if you program a rock to bring you money, rock is going to bring you money. And then do like laying of hands type of stuff like Reiki and using energy to feel like auras and stuff like that. And it's a thing. The problem with it is that, and also homeopathy, like I've heard, this is another thing that, like, this is one of the things that when you're a pagan, and when I was pagan and I believed in like science and medicine, when somebody would come up to me and like I have ADHD and tell me that I just need to meditate to help my ADHD. Thank you. And if I carried the right crystal around, like a crystal that was supposed to help me focus, instead of like therapy and medication, which is what I really needed to help my ADHD, you know. And they'll come up with things like using homeopathy, you know, for, you know, get like, you know, your child's having sleep problems, you know, to use homeopathy, like, you know, cures instead, and like, you know, like weirdo bullshit that you see that's kind of going around, because nature is natural and we should go back to the natural source. So medicine is made out of things in nature, but okay. And and also but I'm always like, you know what, arsenic is natural. Lead is natural.
Yeah, nature will kill you. Didn't we start with that premise?
Yeah, and this is kind of like when the fluffy we call them the fluffy bunnies, the witchlets, like they have a very like romantic version of nature. They look at the beauty of it, and I agree, it's beautiful, but nature is a bitch. She doesn't care about you and she will kill you. Like if you're on the top of a mountain without a jacket, you're gonna freeze to death because nature don't like you. It's gonna kick your butt. So and they kind of forget about that, you know, they forget about the reality of nature and what it does, because we live in a very modern world where we have every comfort that we kind of take advantage of that our ancestors didn't. Our ancestors understood the power of nature and what it did to it. And they didn't understand the actual process, but they did have beliefs that they needed to control, they had to do something to feel like they were in controlling it.
Mhm.
And that's where that came out of. So, and it kind of leads into that new age bullshit that happens because, again, like, I want to know what's going on in my future. I lost, you know, a relative, you know, maybe I can talk to them, you know, I'm doing seances and all that type of woo-woo bullshit, because again, it gives us a feeling of control.
Mm.
And it bleeds over into that because a lot of witches believe they do have supernatural powers and can do things. And it's, again, that psychological trickery, and that's where we get into the dark side of this religion, you know.
Yeah, I can see how this could turn really dark quickly if someone's, you know, for example, being taken advantage of because they're grieving or something like that, or they have a serious medical condition that could be treated with medicine, but instead they're being told to use something different that is not going to be effective.
Yeah. And we're going to go into the problems and perils now of this religion. There's quite a few. So, but first we're going to talk about the positives. I have a pentagram on the screen that I thought was really cool that has different symbols, but it's also a pride pentagram. So this, you're looking at an up. So this is the symbol in a lot of pagan faiths is the upsided pentagram. The first point that's rainbow colored is going to be for spirit. So that is considered the spirit or ether, which is considered an element. And okay, so if anybody has seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you understand what the symbolism of the elements were in that show, same for paganism. So
okay.
so, and then east is, so we're going to go around the circle. I use the adage, never eat shredded wheat. So
Yeah.
it's north, east, west, south. So we're going to go around. So this is, never
shredded
eat
wheat.
Yeah,
Shredded.
that's how I
Northeast.
remembered it when I was a kid, because I have terrible sense of direction, like terrible. So I have to like do the compass thing, and I go, never eat shredded wheat.
Yeah.
So the one that has the bicolors is north, and so that would be like it could be north or east depending on how you're reading the damn pentagram. But I'm just going to do the my north, never eat shredded wheat thing. Okay, so the bicolored area is for earth, and earth would be, it's a feminine energy. So we're going to talk a little bit about energy, and is related to the home and the hearth, the comfort of mothers, the stability of the home life, because it's the earth, we live on the earth. Very like, you know, like steadiness type of vibe we're going for. Next one is east, which is air, and air relates to communication, the sky, clarity, that type of stuff. Like, okay, like if you think of, okay, basically how it's going to work here is that, again, Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you've seen that show,
I've never seen that. No,
you
I've never
have
seen
to
that.
watch that show. It's so good.
Okay, all right. Where is it?
You can watch it on Netflix.
All right, there we go.
It's a children's show and it's amazing.
So everybody pause this video, go watch
the Avatar and then come back. You'll understand what I'm talking about. It has, because a lot of this stuff is adopted from like Eastern philosophies and cultural influences for them too. So again, like a lot of this stuff is overlap with for a bunch of different beliefs and cultures and stuff like that. It's just the package that we're putting it in. So
it sounds like these people put a bunch of beliefs into a cauldron, put some eye of newt and tongue of frog, and stirred it up and came out with something that they wanted to have. That
that's why I said it is a hodgepodge of ancient and new stuff.
That's great.
It is not. It doesn't have a book, so people make things up because that's what we do, because we like to make things up. The next one, it is for the south, which is fire. Again, just think of fire, what fire symbolizes. And then we're going to go to water, which is the trans flag. I forget what that flag is with the blue and the yellow and the pink. So that was south. Don't remember what that flag is for. I apologize. And then the trans flag would be water. and if you think water has to deal, which would be the west, and direction of west. So basically, it symbolizes like emotions and the unconscious, all that, same archetypal stuff that you think about. Okay. And then all together with the spirit and the four elements, it makes a whole. And that is what's reflected in creation, because we see all these things in the most simplified form. Okay. And when you do ritual, you call on all these things. You call on the elements. Call on them as part of your ritual. And then in the center, you would, for your spirit would be like the, Wicca would be like the Lord and Lady, which would be like the God and the goddess. You would call them as part of the ritual to the practice.
And then you sacrifice them, right? Then you kill them.
And then you sacrifice, yes. I get you go. So so these are the positives of the religion. As I said before, it's very inclusive. You can be any race, you can be pretty much any age, you can be of any gender. We do not discriminate, any sexuality. It's very accepting. There are a couple like sexist, terrible people, and because it's just people, and some people are assholes, and they say like, well, males and females reproduce in nature, so it should only be that. And but it's really, again, like an excuse for bigotry and being assholes. So okay, but for the most part, like pretty much every pagan that I have associated with, and it's in the broader community, and because, like, again, this is another thing too, because paganism and witchcraft is considered counterculture, and people of different genders and sexualities is counterculture to the norm, they kind of get blended together, and you'll see a lot of people from the LGBTQ community kind of come over to paganism because they're accepted there, because Christianity you're not, or Judaism or Muslim you're not accepted, but this religion will kind of like bring you over, like, come on, you can come hang out with us, and you can have a leadership position and teach and grow and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I can see that being a really big draw. I can't remember where I was reading it recently, whether it was like the Pew Research or somewhere, but someplace where, or maybe it was on another episode of this show, somebody was talking about how like not accepting, LGBT people and identities was one of the main like driving factors that was causing people to leave a lot of the mainstream religions. So that makes a lot of sense, that if this is a place that is accepting, people would feel kind of safer landing over here.
Right. Because again, like, this was what happened to me. You can leave a faith, but if you don't get rid of the magical thinking, it just, like, again, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. It's the same thing. Like I left the Catholic Church, moved into paganism, but the magical thinking didn't go away. That took longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing about this, like we've been talking about all along, is that feeling of control. Spells and rituals give some psychological relief to the chaos of the universe and our existence, and plus the power it imbows into the practitioner and not a deity. This is why you can have your, so like, you don't need in paganism a deity to do your work. And like what I did, because I use it as an archetypal psychology thing, I didn't actually believe in like Athena. Like she literally existed. Like I didn't. I had this like ethereal sort of like, it's all connected, and we connect with the universal systems because we recognize those things in our life and blah blah. But there's a like a spiritual energy connection that brings us all this thing together, like, like I had like an animism kind of idea of it. So, but like, let's say Athena symbolizes wisdom and planning and that kind of thing. So let's say I was studying for a test and I needed a little bit more meditation for wisdom. I could call on the symbology and energy of Athena, but I didn't actually believe she was existed, but I was taking, it's called a deific mask. You're taking on the aspect of the deity into yourself.
Mm,
Those,
okay.
what it symbolizes. And again, priming your brain.
Yeah.
Prime the brain. That's what it is. And it's, but there are practitioners that really believe Athena is a god, you know, so
Okay.
it goes
So
both
you've got
ways.
your literalists and
Yeah.
your more metaphorical
Again,
crowd,
yeah,
just the same as before.
just the same. Yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, it's all the same thing. It's just the dressing.
Yep.
So the next thing, another positive, like I said, it's very education positive. Like most pagans are very science positive. They don't science positive, like I said, like they pay attention to like global warming and they want to do something about it. They will get very into history, get very into how religion evolved, and why that, like a big thing in, like when you're like a witchlet, you do a lot of reading. I was doing a crap load of reading. I learned a lot at the beginning when I started paganism. I didn't, again, I'm reading like academic sources on like, you know, ancient Egypt and like, but I'm not like putting the connection together that this is just, you know, same bullshit, different dressing, you know, like my brain was not there yet, you know, because I was just like, it was all people that made like religion corrupt, and, you know, and then it became Christianity, monotheistic and bad, and, you know, blah, 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 but really, if you look back, like all religions had some really bad things that they did, but we, again, that romantic re-envisioning of things, you know, and that's a problem, you know, because you're not looking at the actual reality of what these people were doing and living through and stuff like that. And again, like I consider myself that I'm an atheistic pagan. I like a belief in gods, woo-woo, magic, anything supernatural, nothing, but I love ritual and I love drama, and I like the meditative practice of doing spell work if I want something, you know, why people still pray, you know, like they don't believe in it anymore, but they fall into a pattern because it comforts them, you know. And I love a ritual, like 2 years ago, before the pandemic, I summoned Cthulhu for Cthulhu-mas.
Cthulhu-mas? That's
Cthulhu-mas for Christmas, for Yule. I was like, we're gonna summon Cthulhu.
Oh, phew. I'm glad it's not real.
And then like I was kind of joking around that the plague started like 3 months later. I was like, oops.
You did this, you summoned
I'm
it.
the cause.
Cthulhu just showed up as like a really, really tiny organism.
Okay, right. But that's kind of the fun thing about like we did 1 year where before, like years ago, we did a ritual where it was Halloween, and everybody came as a Harry Potter character, and we had a ritual based on like Harry Potter mythology and stuff like that, because like, you know, we were like, fuck the muggles, like we're magical people. Like this is the fun thing about paganism, is that you can do pop culture, you can do ancient religions, like anything you want. You can build a magic or a ritual around those things because it's fun, you know. So that's like, those are like the positive sides to it. Now we're going to go into the problems.
Well, you mentioned this beautiful drawing over here full of symbology, and you talked about the different points, but there's a lot of other symbols on there that I don't even recognize.
Okay, yeah, let me go into that too. I apologize for that. I'm just so
fine.
used to looking at this stuff. So
there's like on the upper, like if we go clockwise, the upper right, it looks like a fidget spinner to me.
Yeah, so this is the triple spiral. So the spiral in general has like a lot of symbolic influence in like our culture, and it can represent, you know, the downward spiral of the void. It can represent the Trinity. This one happens to represent a trinity of it can be whatever you want. It can be the Lord and Lady and spirit. It can be the mind, earth, mind, body, spirit, Trinity. Like you can put whatever symbolism you want into it and stuff
Can
like
it be
that.
like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost?
It can be that too. Yeah, it can be that too. Like you can put in like the triple spiral of like universal, like cosmic energy and like what you want those three things to represent, basically. Okay. Next one,
next one looks like a kitty. It looks really cute.
It's the symbol of the god, the horn god.
Oh.
Not the kitty god.
Oh, I see. Those are the horns. Okay.
Yeah, it's the horn god. Yeah. So
okay.
So this comes from Celtic mythology, and so the Lord deity is he'll either be like Pan or the Green Man or like a satyr kind of god. He's a god of the forest. Okay, and you'll see this in Druids, you'll see this in Celtic mythology, especially where you have this young virile symbol of masculinity.
Well, I know about the young part, but
yeah. Yes, you just need horns, Eric. Yeah.
It's close.
And he's like he can be depicted like half man, half beast with horns, or like some kind of visual representation, like the untamed sexual thing of nature, you know, which is kind of cool. And then the next thing we're going to go to is the male female unity and as one, because this is because in like Wicca especially, the male and the female energies are the same. There's no hierarchy. It depends on how you're practicing, but this is mostly what like Gardner and other people that were teaching this religion had to say. You need the male and the female to bring together the energies of creation. Okay, one can't, like, they have their own mythologies and they have their own symbolism and you know all this type of stuff, but it comes down to sex. Like the male energy and the female energy are going to join together. You're going to fuck, and then we have reality. And the symbology of it, like the idea of creation and stuff like that, and that's kind of that kind of myth and symbol and archetypes that we're kind of looking at, and because everything comes down to agriculture and sex.
And so
and the religion.
In this conception, this is kind of making me think of, you know, I know in some other older religions and cultures, there's kind of an idea that people who don't necessarily fit, you know, an exact binary, whether it's like intersex or trans or non-binary people, sometimes are kind of celebrated as sort of an embodiment of, you know, the combination of the male and the female, and are, you know, thought of, you know, to be kind of special in that way. Is that consistent with this symbology here as well?
Yeah, because so like let's say you were intersexed within and you were a part of the pagan religion, you would have the energy of both the god and the goddess like inside you. You'd be a symbolic representation of both energies together, you know. But like in a physical way rather than in like a metaphorical, you know, way, you know, which is cool. That's why it's so attractive. Like if you're trans, like, and you're transitioning from one sex to the other, you know, that is, and you're in that in between state, you know, it's attractive because you can do it and it's okay, and that energy will carry over, you know. That's why it's very attractive to people in the LGBTQ, because one, they can have leadership positions, they're accepted, and it imbues them with like a special power, quote unquote. Okay.
Well, the next symbol looks like a peppermint candy in a wrapper. Like I want to pull on the ends of it and have it unspin.
So this is the symbol for the goddess.
Okay. And the other one, the other side is a symbol for the.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see.
So in paganism, usually the sun is your masculine aspect, and on the feminine aspect would be the moon. So this is, so you're looking at a waxing, full, and waning moon. And the symbolism, So and there, I remember I talked about like the triple, like the triple in one thing.
Yeah.
So both on the masculine side, but you see it more on the feminine aspect of the goddess. Like the waxing moon would be the maiden. So this would be the virgin. Now, keep in mind, way back, virgin did not mean you hadn't had sex. Virgin meant unkept woman, wasn't married.
Oh, okay.
So that was like the ancient wording of virgin. So the main, because we've had mythological stories of a woman that is not married, like Maeve or Aphrodite, or that are, or Artemis. She hasn't had sex, but she's also an unkept woman. Like, these symbols of the maiden that is trans. This would be like your early, like late teens, early 20s girl. She's transitioned out of childhood, and she's not yet a mother. So, and she's single. And then the full moon is the mother symbolism, which exactly how it sounds. Like the full abundance, has brought life into the world. And this doesn't necessarily mean like physical birth. Like if you've created like a career, and you're a little bit older, you have a little bit more wisdom under your belt, or like if you're a caregiver to animals, like you're doing some kind of mothering energy where you're kind of, doing that caretaker role, either because like if you're like, let's say you're a career woman, but like, you're married and, you need to help support, that would be like a mothering thing because it extends beyond the self. And then the last one, your waning moon, would be like your crone energy. This is your old hag.
Crone energy.
Wow.
Oh, with the long nose and the warts.
Yeah.
Rude.
but because that's the symbol of the wise woman, very like, so wrinkly, and you feel like these old women, and they're so sharp, and you talk to them and they like know things that you haven't experienced yet, and you go to like your grandma and you're like, hey grandma, I'm dealing with this problem, and grandma's probably been through that problem, and you want to hear her answer because you trust her wisdom through experience. That's that symbol.
Cool.
Yeah.
What a cool symbol. Looks so much better now than just a peppermint candy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last one we got looks like reminds me like a Celtic symbol of some sort.
Yeah, it's the Celtic trifecta. So this got adopted by it's used both in like Christianity and in paganism. It's the Trinity. Again, like you have the spiral one we talked about is more of like a chaotic energy with the spiral. This is more of like a state. Okay, again, I'm using these words like energy and stuff like that. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the way it's described. If you want to believe in the woo-woo that's behind the shit, but I'm just explaining what it is. So this is more of a stable place of that energy, especially with the circle in it that's holding it as a whole, that triple in one. So this would be like, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, again, Lord, Lady,
that's cool.
Spirit, like the self, all unified. You can put whatever symbolism that you want into it. It's, on a like a universal energy woo shit kind of way, basically. I have a couple trifectas that I still wear. I just like them. I think they're pretty.
Yeah.
Like in the middle, in the middle of your pentagram, that is just the the symbol for polyamory.
So is polyamory Helen, a big part of paganism?
Yeah, there it is. It's well, like I said, like it's like there's books on sex magic that you can read, and it, like I said, like you go, some people go ritual cyclad. You can have a symbolic ritual where the god and the goddess really do come together during ritual. Haven't been to one of those. It'd be weird. But yeah, like any form of like consensual adult sexuality is accepted in paganism, because again, the idea is that we are nature, so we're going to see things that are reflective in nature and us, and there's and we don't attach like morality to sex, we attach morality to your choices, and because like, and if you take that one step beyond into the woo-woo shit, if it's karma, your actions have consequences, so and that's where it kind of gets, where we're moving from just good moral, ideas into the spiritual, which is that's where it gets weird and fuzzy. So
Got it.
all right, we're gonna talk about the perils and problems. So one of the bigger ones is, and you'll see this a lot. I mentioned a little bit about this at the beginning when I was talking about the Native American aspect of things, but it's cultural appropriation. So you will see this a lot in paganism. Okay, so you are a modern pagan and you really love Hindu stuff. Okay, Hinduism is still being practiced. It has a long history. There's a whole several countries that practice it every day. You as a white person, and I'm talking about white people, okay? You start appropriating symbols, rituals that you do not fully understand from that culture. It's a bad look. Because there are significant histories and mythologies and stories that go into Hinduism.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand the context and you're just like, worshiping, Ganesha because you think he's cool. And I happen to think Ganesha is cool. I have a Ganesha statue on my shelf, but I don't worship Ganesha. I just think his mythology is cool and stuff like that. But the difference is that you're culturally appropriating, but you're not understanding the larger context of it. Same with like Native Americanism and shamanism and things like that. Like you're not understanding as a symbol of the colonizer what those beliefs and not just like the spiritual belief, but the belief that brings that culture together and connects them as a tribe and as people. And us as the symbol of the colonizer, we have plenty of other stuff we can pick from. So you will see that a lot in paganism. And they just say like, well, like Eastern mysticism, and they start like, like with Buddhism, Buddhism is still being practiced, and they'll take on the Buddha as a symbol, but they don't understand the long history of it, the actual practices of it, and that kind of thing. They just are appropriating it for the religion. And I'm not saying all pagans do this. Some people actually like do the Buddha, like do a lot of research on Buddhism, talk to Buddhist monks and all that type of stuff to understand the full context. But surface wise, people will just appropriate because they find it romantic or interesting, foreign, and they want to adopt it. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen that recently here in the US and probably in Europe too, with a lot of white nationalists adopting some of the old Norse mythology and pagan kind of mythology is that kind of what you're talking about too?
Yeah, it is, because like even people in Iceland and Norway that still practice like Old Norse religion, and it's becoming more popular within the culture. They're moving away from Christianity and they're going back to like their Scandinavian Viking roots, and they really want to understand the culture, and they're bringing that practice back. They aren't, not all, I mean, like there's probably a couple, I'm not going to say all of them, but like there's probably a few that are white nationalists, but for the most part, they're not associating with racism. They're not like being like a neo-Nazi, they're not associating that, but because how fascism works, they adopt symbols and appropriate things, and then you got to get like experts to explain the history of like Norway and Scandinavia to people, and why things have certain symbolism. And just because it even now, like if I see like a big white guy with a Thor's hammer on his neck, my brain goes like, you racist.
Yeah.
Because it's now associated with hate groups. And that's not good.
Yeah. And imagine how offensive that is to someone who like that is a symbol of something that is sacred to them. And now nobody even realizes that. All they see is the appropriated version that's, almost like making fun of, or
yeah, and it's like the same thing like when the Nazis adopted the swastika, it had a specific meaning within the Hindu religion, and they appropriated it, and now it's a symbol of white nationalists and asshole people. So
Kind of ruined that one.
Yeah, it kind of ruined all that. Another thing I wanted to talk about as well is there is a lot. So yes, paganism is very sex positive, but because it is sex positive, all right, y'all, sexual manipulation is going to happen in any group, especially with a power structure. It's just going to happen because some people are assholes. Yeah. So that's how, but the problem is that you'll see, so keep in mind that a lot of young people are attracted to this religion, like your late teens, early 20s, and I kind of equate it to, like, let's say you grew up in a very sex negative religion. You transition out, you find paganism. Paganism is very sex positive, very pro, not misogynistic, very accepting of different genders and sexualities, different races, it's all the things you're looking for. Okay. And you meet someone who claims they're good, you join a coven and you get someone that's in a leadership position. We get this with males and females. And because they can teach you that sex is required in paganism, like for you to worship, and they can tell you things that aren't necessarily true. And because of the magical thinking, and because you're used to responding to someone that has a leadership role that you think knows better than you do, you will fall into the same sort of pattern where you're being manipulated, doing special favors, kind of have to participate in that system. And like we know, like in the bigger groups, like with Jehovah's Witnesses and the Catholics and all that type of stuff, like there's oversight, and that fell apart. Like basically there was nothing. But the thing is though, but because these groups have so much money and influence, and once they're exposed, it's a very big deal. In paganism, it doesn't always get exposed because it's very small groups. And like, and because there isn't, there's zero oversight, like you can just run a coven, start one and start advertising for it online and have people join it. It's happening in isolation and on the smaller scale. So, and because people are being groomed, and, they come on the other side of it, with that trauma there, but, and also too, it might be harder for them to talk about the abuse because paganism is counterculture. It has a really bad reputation. So not only are you being manipulated and going through abuse, you also have the added problem of being a part of a religion that isn't widely accepted by people, and have a lot of superstitions and bad ideas around it as well. And then, and that gets into that whole victim blaming bullshit and that type of stuff. So, it adds, more layers to it, and it can be harder to fight as well, just like with these bigger religions, because they have so much money, and but it gets weird. It gets really weird. And I've seen this happen on just from being part of pagan communities for a long time. So you see it happen, you hear about it happening, and it's more common than people think. And because it's sex positive, people want to believe that it's safe. And for the most part, it is. But like with anyone that is given a position of power or influence, there is a likelihood of abuse.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but yeah, we see that everywhere. And yeah, that's really disturbing to me too, what you were saying about, people that could be coming into this being young or in a member of a marginalized community, not having had any kind of sex positive education before, and now they're going into something that if something bad does happen to them, they'll probably be blamed for it. So what do you do? Yeah.
Right.
Oof. Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
So this kind of goes into what I was saying before, the isolation and shunning. Different covens with unhealthy power dynamics may encourage members to end relationships with people they deem worthy of such. So one of my friends a few years back that had belonged to one coven, one of their members left. There's a disagreement with the leader. Person left. The high priestess of that group did not want the other members talking to that person. Didn't wanted them to leave them their cell phones. Didn't want them to hang out because it was bad energy.
Oh, wow.
It was bad energy for the group.
Hmm.
Why this happens is fucking stupid. Because the idea is that we're supposed to be welcoming. We're supposed to accept, different creeds, different colors, different sexualities, genders. We're supposed to be the accepting group. But again, bad power structures. And then again, okay, so you're the person that's shunned. Okay. Maybe that was your group when you transitioned out of religion, and now you had a difference of idea, or somebody didn't like you, or there was conflict and you get kind of kicked out, or you quit. You start losing community again. So you're going to be psychologically harming yourself again from leaving one problematic religion, and now you belong to this other one that you thought was going to be positive, and then you're going to go through it again. It doesn't happen a whole lot, but it does happen because because of that freedom of choice, and especially if you do bad shit, it's going to come back to you and stuff like that. But again, people in power, there's right for abuse. So okay, so the next one is mental health issues and illnesses being mistaken as magical abilities. Okay, I have a story for this, which is funny and sad at the exact same time. So this was maybe 15 years ago, and I was volunteering at a pagan shop that is here in town, that was open. A couple of my friends owned, and my best friend was who's also my co-leader with the coven we were part of. He was working, so I stopped by, and we were doing what we usually do at that time, is that when we got together, we would smoke weed and hang out and gossip, and that's what we did majority of the time. Great. And this guy came into the shop, and then we're talking to him, and he was looking at some of the products, and then came over, and we had recognized him from some public pagan events we had at the location, so we kind of knew who he was, but not on he was just recognizable. We're talking to him, and we start talking about different forms of meditation and magic and stuff like that. And then he goes, he asks, it's not channeling, but it's similar. So I'm just going to use channeling as the word. Do you know what channeling is? And we're like, yes. And basically the idea is that you take on the aspect of an animal. Psychologically. So let's say you want to have more clarity, you would do a meditation where you had the sight of a hawk to see something that you're not seeing clearly. That's the idea. It's nothing, again, nothing physical's happening. All of a sudden he says, I can turn into a werewolf.
Oh boy.
And I'm high.
Oh no.
So I went into the bathroom and started cracking up because I could. It was so weird, and it's funny, but it's sad at the same time because I'm laughing at my reaction at the time. I was not sensitive at all.
Hey, you went in the bathroom to laugh.
I did. I didn't laugh in his face. So place for me.
Was he serious about actually turning into a werewolf? Not just a wolf, but a werewolf. He was it wasn't just this mental thing, it was more of an actual physical thing.
So this is basically how he put it, that he would black out. Okay. And I would say that either he was dreaming or he was hallucinating of him as a werewolf, but he also said he couldn't always remember it, and had to be under certain circumstances, that type of thing. Because if he had physically done it in front of me, what? I'm sorry.
Was he a diabetic? He ate
well, like,
Insulin levels were really low.
I know. Like, because it's always one of those things that when people say they have like magical abilities, I want them to prove it. Like, and if he had done it, he would have broke science, and so it would have been really cool. He didn't.
Shocking. I can't
know,
believe
isn't
it.
And, but the thing is, though, this happens a lot in paganism. Like, if like you have like bipolar, schizophrenia,
Okay.
those sort of things, because there's a lot of hallucinations. There's a lot of shifting in the chemical levels in your body that can make you feel very euphoric. If the brain will trick itself. And what's happening is that these people like him, he's having blackouts, and then he's hallucinating, him turning into a wolf under a full moon, and doing American Werewolf in London, in London. I don't know, but that's a problem. That's something you should talk to somebody about. Like, and a lot of those mental illnesses kind of get pushed aside as like, as being special. Like, have you ever heard of like indigo children or like rainbow children? Okay, so you'll see this with like parents that have kids that are on the spectrum, or they have ADHD.
Yeah.
So the idea is that your child is very special and has some kind of universal energy that they haven't been in their body a while, and so they're different. They can't communicate the same way because in the reincarnation cycle, they've reached to a higher level. This is the bullshit that they sell.
Oh no.
And I've seen parents that won't discipline their kids because you can't discipline them like normal children. You're going to ruin their free spirit, and we don't want them to conform with like, the society that we live in, and blah, blah, blah. Autism kids that have hard time communicating are really communicating with the spirit realm. So, they can't communicate with normal humans, as you do and stuff like that. And because they believe their children are special and are carrying special energy and supposed to bring about some kind of new revolution, like an Age of Aquarius kind of bullshit thing.
Oh no. So they're instead then not going to put the child in speech therapy or socialize them with other kids or things like that would help their life be easier.
Right. They expect the world to conform to their child because their child is special. And and that's a form of denialism, because if you're like, it's a very bad message that like, kids that are neurodivergent are wrong. But instead of saying they're wrong, they're special. And that's a form of denialism, because that excuses you from actually doing the fucking work, getting your kid diagnosed and going through the rigmarole of getting them the right treatments, getting them on the right programs, helping them with their social skills, their communication skills, because there's a lot of work that goes on the part of the parents as well. So this is much easier to think your kid is special than and because of that magical thinking in paganism, you're tricking yourself again to deny what reality is actually showing you. And that's sad.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's a lot easier to think, because doesn't everyone think that their child is special? But then, yeah, like you said, then you don't have to do the work to actually help them.
Yeah. Like, because I remember having my son, he had sensory integration dysfunction, which is how your brain, it dictates how like sensations of the world are organized in your brain, and sometimes there's a disconnect. And like at the time, I still did the work, but I still wanted to believe that he was special in some way as a comfort to myself, even though I still made him go to therapy and like do the work and stuff like that. But it makes it a little bit easier to deal with. At least I did the work, and I'm proud of myself for that, for actually listening to the doctors and stuff. And he's much better now. He's a wonderful young man. I love him to death. But there are people on the other side that their kids are suffering because they're in that much denial where they don't want to realize that their child really does need help.
Yeah,
And
it's one thing to, think that your child is special. I'm sure they are. And let's help them have, a life where they're able to, reach the fullest potential, that they can, and have the best
right.
experience with other people. Like, why can it not be both?
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. But
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the, like, new age beliefs and woo stuff, and
Mhm.
not like it's funny how a group that they encourage so much education and
Yeah.
studying of the sciences and really understanding, and you'll still get the people, but again, because it's the weirdo religion,
Mhm.
because every religion attracts some weirdos.
Yeah.
Just happens. They're going to want the quick answer, just like everybody else does.
Yeah. So it's almost like I'm hearing you say, like, they're combining this. Okay, we've got some science here, and then we also have this magical thinking here. Let's put those together, and now
Right.
you've got this pseudo-scientific mixture.
Right. Basically, yeah,
Yikes.
that's the way it looks at. So next is like being in the broom closet. So this is the same, like if you're a queer person and you're in the closet, except we're doing it for paganism rather than like your gender or your sexuality.
Mhm.
Same thing, like you're afraid of being shunned, you're afraid of being misunderstood and made fun of. Like, again, I had people ask me if I had orgies and killed animals, like, because I wore my pentagram, and then, well, when I wore my pentagram, people thought they first thought I was Jewish, and I'm like, no, this is not the Star of David.
Close. No.
But now, and then
He didn't see
people
the
also
point.
thought I wore the pentagram. They thought I was atheist. And I'm like,
Oh.
nope, this is not the
Okay.
atheist symbol, but thank you.
Yeah.
And then, or they would think I was a witch, and they had the Hollywood satanic panic, what their preacher was telling them what paganism was. And
Mhm.
like, I didn't care because I had enough of a support system around me not to care. Like, I just didn't. I was like, if you don't want, fine, I don't care. And I live in a relatively safe place. It's not like I live
Mhm.
in East Bumfuck, Alabama, where if you have like a rainbow sticker on your car and you wear a pentagram, that you're going to get chased out of town, because that happens.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
people are scared of witches. They're so
Yeah.
scared. So
Yeah.
they'll become solitary practitioners and kind of stay hidden. And where some people really want that community of a
Mhm.
coven, of joining people, because that we do need each other. So, but they'll stay in the broom closet because, like, of not acceptance of friends and family,
Mhm.
and then like the last thing, this ties back to where we're talking about with the mental health stuff, is that not receiving appropriate medical care due to a belief that magic and unproven modalities like reflexology have actual healing power. So again,
Mm.
they think that if you do Reiki or reflexology, or if you take like CBD oil for your kids' ADHD or something like that, that is better than actually going to a fucking doctor who has years of medical experience
Yeah.
and went to school for that. You know that, Kara.
Mhm.
Instead of, and you're going to do some reflexology and some, Reiki, and, and you have breast cancer, and the breast cancer will go away.
Yeah, turns out that is
Bad.
not how that
No,
works.
it's
No.
not.
No.
Really kind of
If we
glad
could
that.
all just, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, that's right. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I've experienced this firsthand. Like, this is something very personal for me. My
Mhm.
mother-in-law had cancer, and it was rife throughout her family history. Like, her mother and her mother's mother all really kind of died of a similar cancer, and we have the means to treat it, but up to a certain point. And so, unfortunately, she was working with these alternative healings, these homeopathy, and she spent a ton of money on non-medical treatments, being convinced that it was going to help her. But by the time she had sort of exhausted those other alternative ways of getting rid of this cancer, it was too late. There was nothing that could have been done, and so she died in her late 50s of something that was very, very treatable and avoidable these days. And so, yeah, this is this is a big thing. And
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people ask like, oh, but it's not hurting anybody. It
Yes,
really
it
It
is.
is.
is, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
delays treatment, if
Mhm.
not completely avoids the treatment entirely. So
Or
Mhm.
or it can go also like, where you have like some knowledge of like natural medicine, like we know like peppermint's gonna like heal like an upset stomach, like it's gonna help, or ginger, kind of
Mhm.
soothes like an upset stomach. And so there might be some preliminary understanding of natural medicine, but natural medicine isn't going to like cure like aggressive breast cancer or what, like it
Yeah.
just it does not have the power to do that, but
Mhm.
because they have some understanding of like a baseline of how like some natural medicine works, but they think that translates into like Dunning-Kruger. We're looking at Dunning-Kruger effect, and that's
that's
very
true.
frustrating,
Yeah.
because you're not a doctor. You didn't go to med school. you
No,
And
it
then also there's people who are wanting to make money off of this stuff too. They have ill
Mhm.
intentions and
Mhm.
somewhat what like Carrie was saying earlier, preying upon the people's um, uh, helplessness and hopelessness and trying
Mhm.
to give them some hope. If you buy this for 20 easy payments of $499.
Yeah.
or they've tricked themselves so much that they actually think that they're helping people,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
sometimes
Yeah.
people will, the placebo effect, they think it's doing something, and then you're talking to somebody, they're like, oh yeah, I started taking this, supplement you told me to take, and I'm starting to feel better, and because the placebo effect is happening, or they stop taking their medication, and the
Yeah.
medication is not completely out of their body,
Mhm.
and they start taking the supplement, Mr. Doctor what a fuck is giving
Mhm.
them,
Yeah.
and they think that it's helping them, and then things kind of go along and it starts getting worse, but they've been tricked, and they don't
Mhm.
want to give up on the fact that they go into that denialism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this could be a whole RfRx show in and of
Yeah, I
itself,
know.
because
Yeah.
Yes,
this is
it
Yeah.
would.
definitely one of the stopovers I had in from transitioning out of religion, was kind of this belief in natural medicine and homeopathy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like, my kind of wrap up, before we get into like the questions, is that I know the perspective of pagans, has it's that it seems very benign,
Mhm.
because it is a smaller group. Pagans don't have like a lot of influence, in a lot of things, and also too, it's because it has that positive sort of energy to it, being very accepting, and sex positive, female positive, all these sort of things. It's very attractive to people leaving organized religions.
Mhm.
Very attractive. And if I can put a caveat in, is that the grass is not always greener on the other side. And, just like any religion, there's good things and bad things. But when you set yourself up for magical thinking and magical beliefs, it can lead to things down the line that are going to lead you to a whole lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And just because you can paint, and especially in pop culture and things like that, where it seems mysterious and beautiful and stuff like that, and you want to claim back your power, and I get it, I do, but don't do it through magical thinking and thinking that you're Harry Potter. And don't listen to people that claim that they are.
Well, and
Sad
thank
but
you so
true.
much for sharing this with us tonight. There has been a ton of questions that the audience has asked us,
Yes.
the folks here. Yeah, we're not able to probably get to all of them, but Carrie, you want to take the first one?
Yes, absolutely. So this is one that I was thinking about too as we were talking. I heard you use the word witch a lot, but is that a gendered term? Can men be witches, or is that just for women? How does that work?
It's kind of weird, because like I think this just comes down to men being weird about words. Like, because like you can use the word witch. Witch is just means to bend. So it's that's the Wicca, which they're kind of interchangeable, and it just, the word means just to bend. Okay. It's associated with females because of history, but the term is non-neutral. You know, it's a neutral term. So like men can refer to themselves as witches. You'll see them kind of call themselves warlocks or magic practitioners. They don't, it just depends on the guy. Because some men, like, you know, they, you know, that toxic masculinity gets into their brain and they hear that word and they get kind of bristle, like, I'm not a witch, I'm not a girl. Okay, well, okay, dude. Like,
okay,
roll.
Yeah, distance yourself from femininity in this religion in which it's celebrated. Okay.
And I would love to be called a witchlet. That'd be just
A witchlet?
as adorable. I'd feel like I'd be 4 or 5 or something again. And we got another question.
We did refer to kids as that, but then it kind of got turned into people that just started practicing paganism and which I'm like, they're witchlets. They're little witches. They're little
It's
tiny
adorable. Like
little chicks
porcelain
jumping
figurines.
around.
Yeah. It's like a chicklet.
Yeah.
Chicklet witchlet.
Tiny pieces of gum. Chicklet. What are some of the afterlife beliefs? We didn't talk, I didn't hear much about that, but like,
Oh yeah, I forgot to kind of point out. Okay, so oh my goodness. It's complicated. Depends on the witch. So there are 2, 3 things maybe. Okay, so one is reincarnation. Reincarnation is one of the bigger ones, that you're either you go into another life, whether it be a tree or another person.
Wow.
Or a rabbit or universal energy. It is not specific to because like, okay, this is spiritual growth. We're not talking about like growth, like, you know, I learned how to do calculus growth. This is like spiritual growth. So basically, like, even if you come back as a tree, you're going to learn something because you came back as a tree. Okay, and it's not considered a de-evolution if you become a tree. It's not considered like a punishment. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because you're supposed to be learning something. Like if you come back as a cockroach, you're supposed to learn something about being a cockroach. I don't know how that works exactly, because like if you have a cockroach soul, but you don't have a mind to connect to a soul in the way that we do, it's weird. I don't know, but that's how it kind of works. Like there's a reincarnation cycle, and your energy shifts into that cycle. And some people think like it's just the universal, because energy is neither created or destroyed; it just shifts form, which kind of gets into the little bit of science, but not really because we're talking metaphorical. We're not talking about like states of matter. Yeah. But they also believe like that consciousness isn't there. So it depends on that. But there are people, there's like your consciousness kind of carries on and you're supposed to like learn a lesson. And that's why that respect for nature comes in, because, you know, apparently if you kill a cockroach, you're killing something that's trying to learn a lesson, but maybe the lesson is that you are going to get stomped on. I don't know. Yeah. But maybe that was the lesson. And then,
well, who chooses where you go next? It sounds like there's either an overarching plan or an overarching deity that's
okay,
sort of
so
these...
because there's no, okay, so if we're going with the universal energy explanation, you're deciding.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, because your consciousness is still there. Like, okay, so basically after you die, your soul goes into like what I call the universal airport, and you're at baggage claim. And you gotta go to your next destination, but you haven't picked your destination yet. So you hang out at the airport.
Yeah.
Then you board another plane, and then you go on to the other life that you're supposed to have. Okay. And time doesn't exist there. So it's not like, you know, you die and then like you're gonna get born as a kitten and your soul's gonna hop over to that kitten in 2 seconds. Like time is amorphous and stuff like that. Like this is actual conversations that I've had in the pagan community about this type of stuff. So and we're going through an existential crisis, it's weird. Okay. And then, so that's one side of it. Or you could be an alien, like, because there are pagans that believe in like alien energies, like ancient alien shit. I love
I knew
ancient
this
alien.
was coming.
Yeah,
I knew it.
That believe in ancient alien shit, and that you become like a Naktu. I can't remember the name of the fucking aliens. You be like your soul goes into an alien existence, and you have that experience in a different dimension, and all this weird shit that if you take enough acid, you could come to believe it, I guess. So that's one side of it. Another side of it, that you just join like a universal consciousness, and you just exist there once you have hit all the reincarnations that you're supposed to. And it kind of like gets metaphorically described as like the cycle of water. You're a gas and you're a liquid, and then like, you know, and then it moves in that way, and then just the continuous cycle, you know, of water. That's another way it's kind of been described. And then the other side of the if we're going away from reincarnation, you go to Summerland, which is the pagan version of heaven.
Oh,
So there's a pagan heaven.
okay.
Summerland.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's not a pagan hell.
No.
Okay. There's not like Winterland or anything.
No, like, because the idea is that you're not punished in any sort of life after death, because again, the idea is that your soul has to evolve. And the only way the soul can evolve is that you go through reincarnation cycles.
Okay.
And if you might have a bad life, but it's not punishment. It's just part of the cycle, which is a horrible message to give to people, because if you believe that you're choosing this life and you haven't chosen a life where your dad is raping you every night, what is that lesson? Why would you choose that for yourself? Yeah, and that's the thing that's so disgusting about it, because you're attributing that together, and that's bad. Because why would I choose that for myself? Right. If we have the power to do that, why would we choose things that are absolutely traumatic, terrible, and damaging to us to get to some kind of, you know, universal truth? Like, what? That doesn't make any fucking sense, but that's one of the things that is taught. So
yeah, and that's kind of an insidious message too for people who are witnessing someone who's experiencing abuse. If the idea is, well, they need to be learning a lesson, then, well, I guess we don't have to intervene, because then we'd be, you know, getting in the way of their development or something.
Well, this is the thing is that if you know, but you have a, like, so if you and I have a relationship on some level, it's believed that everyone comes into your life is connected to you on a soul level. So if you are witnessing someone the abuse, you are supposed to step in, because karma, you're allowing something bad to happen. And two, because that's the relationship you're supposed to have. Because if your morality is telling you, I need to help, you're supposed to do that. It doesn't excuse you from not taking action.
Okay, so you can intervene.
Yes, because that's part of your lesson.
Oh, okay.
And because the idea is that you want good karma, you want to build the positive energy. That's the idea. Like, you want to keep building up that positive energy, because that comes into that universal, like, woo woo, like everything is, you know, the energy is benign, but it comes down to action.
Okay.
So
got it. All right. So I've got a kind of a related question. Next, someone was wondering, do pagans believe in gods of other current religions? So, like, could you be a pagan who worships Jesus or Muhammad or?
You can. Yeah, there's a lot of, because, like, you know, again, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. And some pagans really love Jesus and they want to do magic, and they really like ritual and stuff like that. So they'll worship Jesus, or they'll worship Muhammad, or they'll worship like a monotheistic God, you know, and stuff like that. Because, like, once you start, this is kind of the thing too, is that when you look at modern religion, it's all stuff that was taken from paganism. It just
Mhm.
evolved and changed because of influence, political reasons, and culture. It's all the same thing. We didn't reinvent the wheel. So to them, they're like, oh, I'm just taking it back to its roots, even though the roots we're not that sure about, but
Yeah.
I'm just taking it back to its roots.
Yeah. Taking it back to the roots that I'm wanting it to have.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
All right, we
I
got
can
another
see that.
question here. Are tarot cards, is that a part of paganism?
No. Well, okay. Yes. All right. Like I love tarot cards. Like I have what I call my witch trunk of stuff that I've collected over the years, and I have like so many decks of tarot cards.
A
I like the
witch
art.
trump?
A witch trunk. It's a trunk
Trunk.
that
Oh,
I
okay,
have
okay, got it.
herbs and candles and altar stuff and tarot
You just got
cards and
junk in your trunk.
I got junk in my trunk. Exactly. I got witch trunk. Witch junk. That's what I got. I actually have to go through it. It's kind of a disaster area in there. I don't want anyone to go in there. It's scary. Anyway, but it's not. All right. So like I said before, like because of the New Age beliefs and spiritualism, the woo-woo stuff, some pagans do tarot. Some don't. Some use pendulums. Some don't. Some use dowsing rods. Some don't. Some pagans don't do any form of divination. It's just a tool for people that like to do tarot as their form of divination. But for pagans though, the symbology of certain suits and like there's the major arcana, which is like your sun, star, hierophant, high priestess. They have certain symbology that pagans will use, and then the minor arcana, which is the cups, the wands, the swords, and the pentacles, are related to the elements in paganism. So they kind of combine the mythology, and the symbolism there and stuff like that. But they're not necessary for paganism. Like you cannot have tarot in paganism. It does not matter.
Okay, so you can people can decide what they want to be a part of their practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
like
okay.
I said, it's like there's no rules, but there's guidelines. Kind of like D&D.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so I've got one more question here that I would love to know about too. So we kind of talked earlier about how some of our religious holidays that people might celebrate as a Christian have, some pagan influence or roots to them as well. So for example, Christmas and the Christmas tree. So as a pagan, do you celebrate Christmas? And if so, like, how is it? What is it like?
We celebrate Yule, which is the winter equinox. That's why I had like Cthulhu Miss. I had it at Yule.
Oh,
so
okay.
much fun. Sorry, it was one of the best rituals I did. It was so much fun. Anyway, but usually, we celebrate like pretty much like instead of. But the thing is that we don't go to mass. Okay. But we do the same thing. We like because the Christmas tree is pagan, so we have a tree, and we have wreaths, which are mistletoe. All the greenery is all pagan, guys.
So nothing has changed.
Yeah. Gift giving, like, yes, we do gift giving because that's also pagan. Plus, people love stuff. I love free stuff.
Yeah.
So I
love
like
people who give me stuff.
Exactly. I'll give you stuff, and and you can give me stuff, and we'll be happy. Usually what I do, like usually for like Yule at my house is I throw a party. And I do a white elephant exchange for me and my friends because it just makes things easier because everybody gets a gift and you don't have to worry about buying for specific people and keeps things cheap. So that's what I do. I serve I serve mulled wine, and I serve like meat pies, and everybody brings like a certain food and drink, and then like. And we have a ritual. This is actually like you can do this with like, secular people because it is a lot of fun. We have the bow of the Oak King and the Holly King. And basically you have teams and you write insults down.
Oh
And you give
no.
this insults depending on what team you're on. Like the king always wins because we're going into springtime, but it's basically an insult battle.
This is excellent.
And then we do it for ritual to celebrate Yule, and we're going into it's the shortest day of the year. That means the days are going to extend and get longer, and we're moving towards spring. So that is the whole point of my ritual for Yule. And like all my secular friends like it because it's funny and it's very chill. Like I'm not casting circle. I'm not, I'm not doing any of the ritual stuff. It's just it symbolizes like why our ancestors celebrated the holiday. And it's fun and it's lighthearted and it's just fun. Like people like to do fun things.
Yeah. I'm excited for Yule at your house this year.
I know.
Inviting myself now.
Well, that's what it stands for. Like maybe you'll get to go.
You'll get to go, right?
Maybe you'll be there.
Yule is more of like a Norse holiday, but us being white people, we appropriated.
Okay, so this is an example of that thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a long one, but this is it's so hard to ask the folks who come in and talk about religions just to put it into like around an hour or so. So I am so grateful for you to give us this primer. Before we kind of move on to the conclusion, do you have any final thoughts or final things that you wanted to say?
I think what I would say is that I had a lot of positive things happen when I was part of the pagan religion. And that's why I haven't completely left, because like I said, I love drama. I love ritual. I love some of the positives. Like I learned a lot about myself. I did embrace my own femininity and my own power during that time. And that was an important lesson that I learned. It also, because paganism is about self control, it is really about taking responsibility and that no deity or anyone's coming to save you, because the energy you put out is the energy you will get back. So and this just goes for life, if you're going to be a jerk face, expect people to be a jerk face back. If you're a kind, wonderful, kind person, that is the positivity you want to put into the world, and you'll probably get that back. So I don't believe in karma, but I believe in the lessons of karma, that what you put out, you should receive in return. So stay positive, stay kind, and don't believe in bullshit. Please.
Amen.
Well said, Helen. Well, thank you so much. Folks, you might think, like, how could we possibly top this? There is no way we're going to have another one like these again. This is the pinnacle of RfRx. Well, that may very well be true, but we've got another fantastic RfRx coming up next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Kara, you want to tell us who's coming up next?
Yes, I am super excited for this next one as well. Definitely don't miss it. Next week, we have Surviving and Conquering Conversion Therapy. So conversion therapy is a crime against our authentic selves. Surviving and undoing its negative effects can take years or even decades, and often survivors come out of the other side with PTSD. So we'll have Dr. Mark Eastwood join us to share his experience going through conversion therapy himself, to discuss how survivors can cope with its effects and how others can support those who have come out of the other side of this awful practice. So definitely stay tuned for that one. It's going to be a little bit more serious. Probably it's a serious topic, so get ready, but I'm really excited to hear about that. It's an important topic to discuss. So we'll have that next week. And as always, all of the previous recordings from our RfRx shows can be found on our YouTube channel. Eric's dropping the link in the chat now. And again, any topical questions, comments, ideas, death threats can also be emailed to us at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And then also we're going to drop in the links to our blog, Excommunications, and our podcast. So be sure and check us out on all of those spaces if you want more great content like what we had tonight. And Eric, do you want to talk about the social medias?
Yeah, folks, we are all over the social medias. You guys, some of you are donating, some of you aren't able to do that. Some of you are able to volunteer, some aren't. But if you are looking for additional ways to help us out here at Recovering from Religion, to kind of share with folks who might need it what we're doing here, not only this RfRx show, but also like the different programs we talked about at the beginning, please help us by interacting with, liking, following, commenting, whatever, with all of our different social medias. You'll find us on Facebook, you'll find us on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll find us even on TikTok too. In addition to that, we have a newsletter that comes out every so often. And this newsletter is going to be filled with what's going on with Recovering from Religion, because every now and then we're going to be, we have a excursion that we open up tickets for. It'll talk about resources that have been recently added to the RFR library, recent videos in our YouTube channel, blog posts, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll drop a link into the chat and you can subscribe to the newsletter to find out more. So without further ado, Mr. Rob Palmer, what have you got to say?
Hello, everybody. I don't know about all you, but I learned a hell of a lot tonight. Thank you so much, Helen. I have to tell you, I never thought paganism was a thing in the 21st century until I started volunteering at RFR and taking helpline calls and chats, and even talking to volunteers who, were pagans at one point. I was surprised to learn that many people who reach out to us had stepped out of Christianity or Islam, or were just beginning to step out of them, and were exploring what they refer to as Wicca. So sometimes they called it that, sometimes they called it paganism. I've been confused about the term, so thank you, Helen, for clarifying that it's hierarchical and paganism is the top definition. Also, I thought that paganism was by its very nature somewhat less harmful form of belief than popular monotheistic religions, which seem to traumatize many people due to things like fear of hell, expecting the imminent rapture, being disfellowshipped, misogynistic teachings, enforcing purity culture. We've had many RfRx episodes on those subjects. But it seems that the fuzzy, non-critical thinking and other issues Helen discussed can lead to all sorts of bad beliefs and bad decisions too, like being anti-vax, using alternative medicines and shunning real medicine, like was mentioned. On the helpline, I've not yet taken any calls from people with such problems due to paganism. The calls from pagans I've taken so far are people just questioning the truth of their beliefs, maybe starting to seriously doubt things. Unlike all the many calls I get from people with monotheistic backgrounds or often in great distress and have suffered trauma. But wow, now thanks to this presentation, I know I can expect to talk with pagans who've had huge problems also. Anyway, as RFR helpline agents, we meet people where they are. We listen to their concerns and help them deal with any issues. If they're interested in exploring historic or scientific counterpoints to pagan beliefs, we can help with that. For example, I might use street epistemology as an approach to help them understand if they actually have good reasons to believe what they do believe. If someone is really ready to let go of those beliefs, they may get an invitation to our online community, where in fact they'll find a chat channel called New Age, where these types of things get discussed by other interested or involved clients and agents. But by the way, I'll say that like with monotheists who call RFR and still have a belief they're not ready to throw away, we wouldn't try to deconvert a pagan unless they're interested in exploring that possibility. Anyway, now that I understand this all a bit better, I'm looking forward to participating in more pagan calls and chats and talking to these people with a little bit better knowledge than I had before, a lot better. Thanks again so much, Helen, former pagan high priestess. Thanks for the great information. And a few final thoughts. If you're in a position to and inclined to do it, consider either donating to RFR or volunteering with us. There's links for both of those options at the top of our homepage, recoveringfromreligion.org. Also, once this is uploaded to YouTube and to the podcast list, please consider sharing it, as well as sharing all our other RfRx episodes. If you share those on social media, that would be fantastic. It'll really help spread the word about RFR. Thank you, everybody.